call this meeting to order. Roll call, please, Cassandra.
Mayor Luis Trujillo.
Present.
Councilor David Romero.
Here.
Councilor Elaine Rodriguez. Councilor Michael Montoya.
Present.
Councilor David Olivari Jr.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have a quorum.
Please join us with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to just thank Mother Nature for the beautiful rain that we have and wish my dad a happy birthday today, 94, 93, 94, yeah. And just talked to him before the meeting, and he's still joking around and knows everything that's happening, so I'm really thankful for that. I'd also like to just thank the community for all their work they're doing with the struggle with COVID and us recovering and remaining in that turquoise area, and of course, reminding ourselves of the people that we've lost throughout the year. Thank you. Next item, please.
Approval of agenda, Mr. Mayor.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
There's a motion by Mr. Romero. I'll entertain a second. Second by Mr. Montoya. Roll callers, please.
Councilor Olivari Jr.
Yes.
Councilor Romero.
Yes.
Councilor Montoya.
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, a second by Councilor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Cassandra.
We have next public input. I do have one for public input, and I'll go ahead and read it into the record if I may.
Sure.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Councilors. My name is Frank Casey, and I am here today to propose an advertisement idea to bring more tourists into our beautiful town. I propose to advertise Las Vegas as the entertainment capital of our state by creating a pyramid-shaped rotating sign with pictures of the different movies that have been filmed here. The sign will be placed in a strategic area of the Albuquerque Airport so that it would be in plain sight of visitors as they deplane and walk through the concourse to get to the baggage claim area. The pyramid could be solar powered, and the pictures within the sign could also rotate so people will be able to see many advertisements for films such as Easy Rider, No Country for Old Men, Red Dawn, Convoy, and network series such as Roswell and Longmire, along with other films made here that are too numerous to mention. Attached is a very simplistic rendering of my idea. This advertisement signage could be paid for by larger tax dollars. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Cassandra.
And that is all for public input. Moving on to mayor's appointments, reports, recognitions, and proclamations. We do have one proclamation for Building Safety Month, May 2021.
Very well. We'll get to that in just a second. I just have a couple of issues to report. First of all, I'd like to welcome our guests. It's not very often we get the president from New Mexico Highlands University and two regents to our meetings. So I'd really like to thank you, Mr. Bill Garcia and Harpo Sanchez and Sam Minner, and of course Max Baca from New Mexico Highlands University. Thanks for being here with us. Yeah, absolutely. Our former PIO, Mr. Leiner. Welcome, Mr. Einer. Thank you. I'd also like to just mention that I had an exciting meeting yesterday with the Las Vegas Arts Council regarding the art installation project that this vision that's going on in my head to install art all over Las Vegas. And so the meeting went very well. They agreed to do it. We're going to move forward with a Q&A with some people from Albuquerque to see how they kicked off their art installation project and so forth. And I'm happy to report that we got 3 pianos donated to us from the Las Vegas City Schools. So one's going to go in the gazebo, one will go in the breezeway on Bridge Street, and then one will go under the marquee at the Surf. So hopefully it'll fill up our sidewalks with people jumping on the piano and playing piano. I don't know how to play piano, but I was in Durango a while back, and there's pianos all over. And up on the 16th Street Mall in Denver, there's pianos all over, and every time there's somebody playing the piano, and it just looks so nice and adds a different ambiance. So hopefully, we'll get those set up here shortly. And we'll move on to the proclamation for Building Safety Month. And if you would please be so kind, Cassandra.
Certainly, Mayor. Whereas the City of Las Vegas is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depends on the safety and economic value of the homes, buildings, and infrastructure that serve our citizens both in everyday life and in times of disaster. And whereas our confidence in the resilience of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professionals, laborers, plumbers, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. And whereas these guardians are dedicated members of the International Code Council, a nonprofit that brings together local, state, and federal officials that are experts in the built environment to create and implement the highest quality codes to protect us in the buildings where we live, learn, work, play. And whereas our nation benefits economically and technologically from using the international codes that are developed by a national voluntary consensus codes and standards developing organization, our government is able to avoid the high cost and complexity of developing and maintaining these codes, which are the most widely adopted building safety and fire prevention codes in the world. And whereas these modern building codes include safeguards to protect the public from hazards such as hurricanes, snowstorms, tornadoes, wildland fires, floods, and earthquakes. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role of our community's largely unknown protectors of public safety, our local code officials who assure us of safe, sustainable, energy, efficient, and livable buildings that are essential to America's prosperity. And whereas Prevent, Prepare, Protect building codes save the theme for Building Safety Month 2021, encourages all Americans to raise awareness about the importance of safe and resilient construction, fire prevention, disaster mitigation, energy conservation, water safety, training the next generation, and new technologies in the construction industry. And whereas each year in observance of Building Safety Month, people all over the world are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety, resilience, and economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by local and state building departments, fire prevention bureaus, and federal agencies in protecting lives and property. And now therefore, I, Louis A. Trujillo, Mayor of the City of Las Vegas, along with members of the governing body, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2021 as Building Safety Month in the City of Las Vegas, and urge all citizens to celebrate Building Safety Month. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Cassandra. You always do such a good job. The next order of business is City Councilor's report. Councilors? Anyone? Thank you. Next order of business.
Mr. Mayor, City Manager's report.
Mr. Manager?
So can you hear me from here?
Yeah. I don't think the audience can because of the microphone.
You want me to move that?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
So you all have a copy of my the bullet report that I prepared for this meeting. So the first item that we have there is motorized trikes for the police department. And so note here that the Las Vegas Police Department is interested in purchasing 4 trikes at an estimated cost of about $11,000 per trike. The Chief of Police, Deputy Chief of Police, and several officers, as well as they invited me, and we tried them out. We think that they are a very cost-effective way to promote community policing. There are pictures and testimonials attached to the presentation, and if you would like to discuss that further, the Deputy Chief Stumberg is here for that purpose. The next item is just an update on the Gallinas Riverwalk Park. Stephen Aragon, Bill Hendrickson, and I met with the Gallinas Riverwalk staff. Groundwater Studios, those are the architects for the Riverwalk Park. And we did that yesterday to do a final review of the 75% drawings. We agreed to some very minor changes. Basically, those were adding more park benches and those kinds of things. And so we are ready to begin purchasing and hopefully installing very soon benches, picnic tables, barbecue pits, and other park infrastructure sometime this summer. Results from Amnesty Day. So we had the free Amnesty Day on May 1, and overall, I think it was a big success. We served 238 customers, and we helped them dispose of 126,000 pounds of trash. That amounts to about 528 pounds of trash per customer. The total cost to the city was just under $10,000, which amounts to $53 value for each customer who participated on average. While the event was an overall success, it should be noted that the response was bigger than expected and has somewhat overwhelmed the city's solid waste department's capacity. But we are planning for a future Amnesty Day. We haven't determined the date on that yet, but plans are in the works. So sewer line at West Las Vegas Baseball and Softball Complex. Maria Gilroy, Councilor Romero, and I met with Chris Gutierrez, Superintendent for West Las Vegas Schools, and other school staff and their the developer for that project to discuss how to approach a sewer line that runs through the fields. We think we came up with a productive way that all parties were agreeable to. The next step is getting cost estimates and identifying ways to pay for these improvements. Possible solar farm. Maria Gilroy and Bill Hendrickson have entered into discussions with a community solar program that is interested in leasing vacant city property for a solar farm. The possible lease terms would have the community solar program pay so much per acre, that's to be determined, and an annual option fee. These are very preliminary discussions. We'll bring you back more as we learn. The American Rescue Plan update. We just received the U.S. Treasury's guidance on how we would be able to spend the $3.04 million that's been provided to the city. I provided in an email a copy of that direction to all of you, and we discussed it at the department directors meetings. We're going to try to get together, look at that very carefully, what's allowed, what's not allowed, and bring some recommendations to the council. Employee Recognition Day. We had planned on having an Employee Recognition Day last summer, and unfortunately COVID got in the way and we had to cancel that, so we are in the process of discussing how we can do that this summer, hopefully in the next month or so.
I'll flip the burgers, so just call on me.
Okay. And the last item is, as you know, I am planning to retire effective June 30th or thereabouts. It's been my pleasure to serve the city for the past year, and my official retirement letter is attached. And if you'd like, I would be glad to read it to you.
Sure. Thank you, Bill.
So it says, Dear Mayor and Councilors, I am writing to officially inform you of my plan to retire as of May 30th, 2021. It has been my pleasure to work for the governing body, department directors, and city employees to work with. I believe that together we have made considerable progress in moving the city forward in the past year. I am particularly happy to note that the city's finances are solid and that we have healthy reserves and the resources necessary to continue improving city services. I am equally, if not more, pleased with the progress we have made towards improving the quality of life for city residents by cleaning the city, filling potholes, improving roads, parks, and other infrastructure. Altogether, these accomplishments and those that are poised to happen in the near future make the city a better and fairer place to all. Fairness has always been an important value to me, and I believe that the improvements to the city's public safety, water, sewer, roads, parks, and events are critical to that end as they provide benefits to our entire city population. We have achieved this progress in a difficult and often stressful year as we've had to struggle with the COVID pandemic and its difficult and often painful consequences. The mayor and council's concerted efforts and actions to promote public awareness, social distancing, establish a mask mandate, a citywide curfew, a COVID testing center, and vaccination events all contributed to reducing the pain and losses associated with this terrible pandemic. San Miguel County, with an especially vulnerable population, has been able to reduce its death rate to 1/3 of the statewide average. Of course, every death is sad and painful, but it is important to note that by working with our various partners and our citizenry, we have saved lives. Finally, I would like to salute everyone that I've had the opportunity to work with: the mayor, members of the city council, the chief of police, the fire chief, city directors, and city employees, as well as community partners, city schools, Luna Community College, Highlands University, United World College, various community organizations, and city residents. By working together as a community, we have been able to advance so much further. Again, I'm grateful to have had this opportunity to serve. I will continue to work hard until my last day, and after that I plan to spend time with my family and to volunteer in any way that I can for Las Vegas, which holds a very special place in my heart. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Bill. And I just want to take a second to just to sincerely thank you for your service. This was a very difficult year, and I don't know if we could have done this without you. Your efforts, your finance expertise, your economic knowledge, your everything just came at a perfect time for us. And I'm sorry you're not going to stay till the end of my term. I really am. You've done a wonderful job, and I have the utmost respect for you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Bill.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Montoya?
The last year was really hard, and the last administration, my fellow councilman here served under the past administration, and I'd come to the meetings, and they were pretty tough, pretty rough meetings. A lot of times I felt like they were hostage and that they were held their hands behind their backs, and the city of Las Vegas wouldn't move forward and do what they needed to do for the citizens of Las Vegas. A lot of things, a lot of vacants were filled in this administration a year ago. I think we've done a lot of projects that really the community doesn't know about. Tons and hundreds of, just in the past month, I believe we spent like $28 million in projects. And those are to improve the city streets and our sewer infrastructure and so forth. And we've been obtaining money through the COVID, $3.2 million, that we assisted the business community. And, you know, a lot of those things, people are busy with the pandemic and with their daily lives that, you know, really they don't focus on those kind of things. But that's why they have us here representing them. And I'm one of those that I like to let the public know and be transparent as to what we do. I want to thank you, Bill, for the 1 year of service that you gave us, and I think that we're headed in the right direction. I think those that don't want to get on board, well, they're left behind. But I think we're going in the right direction, serving our public and our people. And I have one, and I thank you for your service and for the smooth transition and so forth that's going to happen here. It is a long process, Mr. Mayor and Council, to fill in these shoes. So I'm glad that you send your letter of resignation in that sense, so the city can move forward. Wish you well in your plans, in your future endeavors. You're still a young kid, so you still have a lot of years ahead of you. But Mr. Attorney, if I'm not out of line, I'd like to put Bill's resignation on next meeting's agenda so that Mayor and Council can approve it, and so that we can approve hiring, moving forward and moving on the process to hire somebody else at the same time.
That should put on the next agenda for the next council meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Mr. Taylor.
Thank you.
Mr. Ulibarri?
Bill, thanks a lot. You did a good job.
Thank you.
One thing that I saw is the west side, we started taking care of those roads back that have been neglected for the past half century. Finally got to it. People are happy. I'm happy. the previous administration, we had hard times on the previous administration, but once we came in with a new mayor and the two new councilmen, we did some work. We working together. We're doing a better job. I just want to thank you for all the work you've done for the city, and you take it easy.
Thank you,
Take care of yourself.
Councilor Olivari. I think, as I said, it was one of my guiding goals has been fairness, put fairness across geography, all people, and so I think we've made some real strides there.
And I think you'll always be my friend. If I need to talk to you or say something to you, anything I can do out, you'll always praise you and, thanks for doing your job.
Well, I'll be around, and as I told the mayor and I told others, if, at no charge, I'll be glad to provide it whatever consultancy you might want from me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bill.
No, Mr. Mayor, I forgot, Mr. City Attorney, with that request, I also would like to see if we could entertain at that time on the agenda, servants' pay. If Mayor and Council wishes to do that at that meeting, at that item.
It's at the council's pleasure.
Thank you.
Put on the agenda.
Thank you.
Mr. Romero?
I just also can add to what everybody has already said. Just thank you, Bill, for your service for that 1 year. And I know at times, sitting in the city manager's office, being the head of the city, well, I mean, of course, the mayor might be the figurehead, but you're the one that, sits here and does, has to deal with the day-to-day, and that can be cumbersome. And I'm sure those are there days there that you probably wonder what the heck you're doing sitting there when you could be relaxing and enjoying life. But, some of these positions that we sit on are some of the most unappreciative jobs that, basically volunteer to do, because, we're not here for the pay, that's for sure. And there might be times that I know that we probably have disagreements, but at the end of the day, I appreciate your professionalism, and that means a lot, Thank you, Bill.
Thank
We'll
you.
move forward.
Thanks to all of you. And I just do want to correct one thing. It's not going to, this will be 14 months, not 1 year. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate you. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, presentations not to exceed 10 to 15 minutes per person. Our first presentation by Regents William Garcia, Frank Sanchez, and President Sam Minner reporting on the meetings between the city, county, and New Mexico Highlands University concerning the status of the golf course and options to reopen the facility.
Thank you. Welcome. Do you need a couple of chairs up there?
Yeah, we can bring some up.
Okay.
Can we bring? I have the presentation.
Presentation in here.
Is there someone here?
No. I assume you're all vaccinated?
Yes.
Okay.
We are 100%. Well, I am.
All right.
I think so. Frank, you want to sit here? Or here, either way. I'm just trying to bring up the presentation.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Mayor, councilors. My name is Sam Minner. I'm president of New Mexico Highlands University, also a resident of Las Vegas, been here 6 years. My wife and I reside here. It's really been a great experience. We have a particular topic that we want to talk about this evening, but I also want to take just a few seconds to thank the councilors and the mayor particularly for your COVID responses. They were some very courageous decisions you made there. I know difficult. I made some difficult ones as well, but together I think we've really done a great job, and I thank you sincerely for the decisions that you've made.
Thank you, Dr. Minner.
We're here to talk about the golf course right across the street, and I'm just going to spend just a couple minutes. You want to bring up that first slide, Max?
I can't get up here. I'm having trouble with it.
Okay.
The computer seems to be a little sluggish.
Let's see, I can start without the...
Yeah, she's got it.
Okay. There are some hard copies there for you. So a couple of years ago, I actually required the vice presidents, including Max Baca, who is our chief financial officer, to take a look at their operation generally, the golf course fell under, still does, under Max's kind of purview. And what's going on and what we need to do and how to make improvements, et cetera. Max did a deep dive on the golf course, and he found that we had accumulated a pretty significant debt. Try that. Okay, thanks. Okay. Is that better? Yeah, thanks. There. The debt was significant enough that it had come to the attention of both state government and our regional accreditor, the Higher Learning Commission. They said that we needed to address the debt. We submitted a plan to state government and our regional accreditor to address that debt that had accumulated over many, many years, actually. Also, shortly thereafter, there was an effort to reopen, to keep the course open. There was a vote by the board that said we shouldn't be devoting additional resources to it at this time, directed me to close the course. I did, and it's closed to this day. However, I will say that from my personal perspective, as well as the perspective of Highlands, we need that course open. It's a very important community asset. We want it open, we need it open, so let's find a way to do that in some collaborative way, ideally, to get it back open. So we are addressing the debt, that's on us. No one else needs to really concern themselves with that. That's a Highlands thing. But what's left is a strong desire on my part, the institution as well, to reopen the course, improve it if we can, and get going again. It's such, as I said, an important community asset. So that's a brief history, believe me. It goes on for many, 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 many years. There have been other commissions, reports, studies. We have all of those, but I'm not going to go into those details. So what's before us now is how do we move forward? And with that, I'll turn things over to two of my bosses, the Regents, Regent Sanchez and Regent Garcia. Frank, are you going to kick it off?
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Mayor, for allowing us to make this presentation, and Councilman, thank you very much for allowing us to be here today. And I just wanted to start by saying that I thank Bill Garcia, Regent Garcia, and Regent Montoya, who worked very hard when they started talking about closing the golf course down. They jumped on it right away, and they tried to try and figure out a way to keep it open. And as it happened, COVID hit and other problems that were they weren't able to keep it open. As the President stated, the board decided to shut it down. It was kind of a bad deal for the city, bad deal for the university, but that's the way it went down. Anyway, in the meantime, Regent Garcia kept working very hard to try and figure out a way to keep it open. And so he's had, I know, some contact with you already in the county as well. And he figured that if the three entities would come together and figure out a way to keep it or reopen it, that it could happen. And so he's been at it, quite diligently on maybe 7 hours a day or maybe even a little longer. He works on it on a regular basis. And so I thank him for that, because if it wouldn't be for his efforts, we probably wouldn't be here today. The reason that I'm here today, the reason that I joined the Board of Regents is because I care a lot about Las Vegas. I went to Highlands. I was brought up in Las Vegas. I went to Highlands, and I came back and I worked my whole career in Las Vegas. So I'm extremely committed to this community, and so I want to see it prosper. And I think one of the big entities that we have that can allow us to continue to move forward and become stronger as a community is having a golf course. I feel very strongly about the population of the university, the student population. We've been in a steady decrease for the last, I don't know how many years, 12 years or maybe even more. And so I hope that we've hit bottom and we can start to turn that around. I think having the golf course can help us do that. And so my commitment to the university is to bring the population of the campus back to what it was before. And it might take a few years, I understand that. We're not going to solve the problems overnight, but I think having the golf course there and having that property there, develop that property, can go a long ways in helping us to bring the population back. I'm concerned about the fact that we hire professors, and they have to live in Albuquerque or Santa Fe or somewhere else. So I think if the three entities that we're talking about today come together, we can figure out a way how to increase the housing availability to those folks, you know, and have another amenity so that they can participate and have something to do. You know, a lot of times I hear that the reason the students don't come to Highlands or don't stay on the weekend is because there's nothing to do. Well, we have to change that culture. We have to make it work so that when they do come to the university here, they have things to do, they have places to go, restaurants to eat at, and so on and so forth. And so I'm committed to that end, and so I'll do anything that I can to promote that. And so, like I said, Bill Garcia has been kind of the guy in charge of this project, and so he has a lot of specifics, and he'll share those with you. But I just wanted to thank you guys for, you know, I've talked to you individually, and I think you understand, you know, where I'm coming from, and I thank you for listening to me and for helping us move forward. So thank you for
Dr.
that.
Sanchez.
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor and councilors. I'm Bill Garcia. I'm a Regent at Highlands. It's a pleasure for me to be here this evening. As Dr. Minner mentioned, he gave you the history, the financial issues. Our accreditation was at risk as a result of the deficits that were building up, and there were the funds were not being properly addressed. Regent Sanchez, though, I think presents the vision. And when I first started working on this, I didn't see this as, let's open the golf course so, you know, our golfing friends can golf. I see it as a strategic asset. This is an asset within the community that's going to take 2 steps for us to really maximize. So the first thing that I want to say is that step 1 is getting the golf course reopened. In order to do that, the 3 partners, the 3 community partners that have been identified, the city, the county, and Highlands, working together, we've crafted a collaborative here, and I'm very optimistic about some of the prospects for us moving forward. But the second and most important part to me is what do we do in developing the golf course vacant land that's there? Regent Sanchez has mentioned that we should have virtually every faculty member living in Las Vegas, but we can't make them live here if there's not appropriate housing. So we know there's a need for additional new housing within the community. We believe that the asset that we have with the golf course is going to help us get there. So that's the second piece. If you'll go to page 2, Community Leaders Task Force Form, I'd like to take you through this. It's kind of, I hope it'll be very quick and efficient. So Regent Sanchez and myself agreed to lead the effort to determine if community support existed, which would enable us to reopen the golf course and find a way to continue operations. As 2 regents, we formed a community leaders task force to review all of the data, financial and operational. We were very open, very transparent. We shared everything with the community leaders. And we wanted to, which included identifying the size of the accumulated debt and develop ways of addressing it, both in the short term and in the longer term. The task force was also tasked to review the data to formulate proposals for, proposals for use by the Highlands City and County and others to consider in seeking a way to reopen the golf course. The results would be presented to the city and county and others who would be able to address the subsidy problem. On the next page, who should belong to the task force? The 3 principals, clearly, Highlands, city, and county. Reps were appointed by all 3 entities. Additional representatives that we invited included City of Las Vegas and West Las Vegas City Schools, Las Vegas Golf Association, and the Chamber of Commerce. Meetings were open to the 3 reps and any other appropriate stakeholders. So we were open. We met on the campus of Highlands. It was published and publicized, and we allowed anybody to come in. The purpose and mission: review the financial operational data over the past several years. Max Baca, our Vice President of Finance, was really helpful and did a great job of going back over the last 5 years and really scrubbing the numbers for everybody. Identify efficiencies that may be available. Are there, for example, shared costs of maintenance? Could that be an efficiency? So we looked at things like that. The original plan called for seeking support for 3 years subsidy so that a comprehensive plan could be developed to address the longer-term goal of developing the asset that we talked about. Develop options for the 3 principals to consider for action over the next 3 years. So on April 14th, we met at Highlands from 10 o'clock to 3, and we used every minute. We read the mission and expected outcomes. We scheduled follow-up meetings as appropriate. We reviewed the financial data, used previous 5 years, as I mentioned, that Max presented. Group discussions followed. They were candid and beneficial. For example, the comment was made, we can't play if it's not open. You go to the golf course on Sunday at 2 o'clock and it's not open, you can't expect people, you're not going to generate. Well, that was countered by, we're not enough play impacting the financials. So there's a relationship there, and we went through all of that and discussed and tried to understand it. We agreed to the follow-up meeting on April 27th. The group consensus was that subsidy funding could be made available for 2 years versus the 3 years that had originally been proposed, and that overall subsidy support would be made equally from all 3 principals. So it was said all 3 should share. It's a community asset. Let's do that. So proposal step 1, seek funding equally from the 3 principals of not more than $70,000 each for the next 2 years. This will allow the course to reopen this year. We had a target date of June 1st for this year and a full year next year, 2022. Now, final numbers for the subsidy would be developed once all 3 principals agreed. Variables include the potential use of a contract to manage the course, use of a certified pro, and we'll have to use the RFP process. But in the whole mix and discussion, it was determined that there are efficiencies that can be made, but we kind of have to get everybody behind it and saying we're willing to do it, and then the fine details will be developed. But on a very broad basis, we know that it will not be more than $70,000 a year for any one of them. East Las Vegas Schools committed to $10,000 through the operation for commensurate use by the golf team and so forth. West is going to consider and advise. So we thought that that was very important because the school systems benefit. They can use that park for their many different kinds of activities, not the least of which is golf. So this means that all 3 principals will need to commit to equal funding of no more than $70,000 for the next 2 years. The oversight group, we agreed that we would need an oversight group from representatives of the 3 principals. So if you have money in the game, you're going to have a seat at the table, and that will be part of the agreement if we can get to an agreement. The legal agreements will define all the conditions necessary for all 3 entities to finalize. Nothing happens until we all sign the legal papers. An important factor that the task force discussed was the need to incorporate a true-up provision that would allow the group to manage any shortfall or average once the course completes, or overage, once the course completes the first year of operation. So for example, if we're successful and operations, we get them going, and then we would have the 70 from each one of the players. If that was too much because of the shortened season now that we're looking at, then they would go into a credit and apply to the next year. So there's the ability to take advantage of it. Conversely, if there's an overage, and of course that's why we want all 3 of the entities to be at the table in oversight so that we will not have that, then we would have to true it up for the next year. So the group is fairly confident that these are all doable numbers and that we could operate within those parameters. Step 2, the second part of the work plan calls for the task force to identify options for use of the golf course vacant property as a way to provide sustainable funding for the golf course. Implementation of step 1 will provide a time frame of 2 years to work on this. So we'll have 2 years, once we get the course open, to work with all the partners and identify, well, what are the options? How should we use, there's all kinds of ideas out there. Somebody wants a rodeo ground, the Highlands athletic director I saw, he wants to build a football stadium. There's no shortage of ideas, and we welcome them all. We will have to do, at the end of the day, what is the best business case for us to advance all the goals of everybody. So we had done previous work, as Regent Sanchez mentioned, then Regent Luella Mora Montoya and I had worked on developing a lot of this second plan. We actually were able to contract, thanks to Highlands, with Ken Murphy from Albuquerque. He headed up the UNM Development Corporation, so he's responsible for developing a lot of the UNM property. He came up and looked at this, consulted with us, and offered advice. And he was, quite frankly, very excited. He saw great potential here. And he did enough consulting that he was able to provide us with, well, what's in it for the city and the county? What about the tax base? And, what about the economic development? And that's the thing that's most exciting, because that's the second part that, of course, we all want. In his estimates, he identified a $2 million annual benefit to the city in property tax increases once it's fully developed, once it stimulates additional commercial property, et cetera. It all could be done within the confines of that very nice park. Can you imagine having a home on the golf course with, it's a natural ecosystem, walking paths, et cetera? I mean, there has been work done in the past by various individuals, but for one reason or another, they weren't able to pull it together. Developing a project like that takes real expertise, and we were real pleased that Mr. Murphy was able to help us, and he gave us the idea and the vision that this is all possible. Now, this work would begin as soon as we all signed a formal agreement. The last page here is the community leaders studied the issue and recommends the following. All three principals participate for 2 years. The county met on May 11th, 2021, and adopted a resolution to fund its portion. We met with them in Pecos, and they voted to support it. We asked the city of Las Vegas to commit to the same in order to complete the commitments. We, for our part, will need to have those 2 commitments in hand, and we'll have to go back to our full board for our chairman and have a vote on it. But so, I mean, that's nothing's done until all of the formal agreements are signed. So here, but it's a step. It's an iterative process, and we're taking the next step. And if we can get you to agree that this makes sense, then that'll be the second big part, and we'll take it to our board, and then we'll go from there. And then we'll have the attorneys work on the memorandum of understanding or agreement, whatever that will be. So that concludes our presentation, Mr. Mayor and councilors. You want to add anything, Dr. Menor?
No, just to very briefly reiterate, Highlands is committed to opening that course. There's a way forward that we can collaboratively figure out, work on, agree to. It's really, really an important community asset. And I'm committed to that. The university is. 2 of the 5 regents are. So we've got a little head of steam again, and I hope we can find a way to do it.
Well, I'd like to thank you for presenting tonight, and I think that was one of our first meetings we had after I became elected.
I think it was.
He called me in like 3 days after I was elected and said, we have to meet. And so I've been meeting off and on about this project, and I just want the community to know that I also think that it's important for our community to have that golf course going, and I'm in full support of moving forward with an agreement. The only thing is that, well, it's not the only thing, but one thing to consider is I'm glad that you're forming this collaborative between the parties so that we could have a word in on the type of management that's happening, what we're doing, how we're generating ideas, et cetera. And I have a question for Bill, Bill Taylor. Could some of the money that's coming from the federal COVID money, could that be used, or not the COVID money, but the economic development, could that be used for a purpose like this?
We're studying that, but I would guess not. But I think that we have adequate reserves. The money's fungible, so you take it out of one pot or another pot. So and this is a non-recurring cost, and we have reserve right now equal to nearly 6 months of
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I would just, and Councilman, I would just like to say that this is an opportunity for us to work together.
Yeah.
And there's endless possibilities after this is done. So I think it's a great opportunity for all three entities. And I look forward to many more activities that would promote all three entities.
Yeah, joint working together, and I think that's the beauty of this project, is that the entire community is involved.
Yes.
You know, so.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero?
If I can, to remind the council, we do have a comprehensive master plan that we have all approved. And if you go to page 96 and 120 of that comprehensive master plan, I'll read it on page 96, and it falls in within what the proposed is. It says, work with NMHU to negotiate the most beneficial and best use of the golf course property. Prioritize mixed-use options, including affordable or senior housing with commercial or business park options that follow the quality of life guidelines outlined in this chapter. Prioritize options that are economically stable and or beneficial for NMHU and the city of Las Vegas. So, we adopt these plans, and it's like we've mentioned before in the past, that we can't just get these plans and put them in the shelf. We got to follow these things, and the golf course is a very important part to this community, and I think that honestly, once it was closed down, that to me, and I mentioned, to a couple of, to Bill and to Mr. Sanchez, that, at the end of the day, if we do commit to this, I'm committed to this project. If we do commit to it, at the end of the day, we need to have deliverables that we have to show forth to our constituents that those $70,000 are being used properly, and of course, the details will come in the agreement, but, just to make sure that we're getting our $70,000 worth in our investment. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Romero.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Montoya?
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming before us. It's nice to see some people at the chambers. So I had a few concerns. Number one was when Highlands, New Mexico Highlands University, I have 3 graduates from Highlands in my family. My wife and 2 of my kids were adults. But, I remember back in the day when I got off work, was tired, wanted to enjoy my family. I lived 3 blocks away. We'd go on the bicycles and we'd go jogging or walking around the golf course, and no problem. Now, I guess things have changed. But once that fence chain link went up, I felt you excluded the community. A lot of people used to do their daily exercise around the track, and they harmed to no one, bothered no one. The other thing is that it's a 9-hole course right now,
Correct.
and there's no possible way of doing it on 18 at all, right, because of the property?
No.
Okay. Now, I know that you don't want to talk about the finances of it, but what's different this time? If you're $2 million in the hole, in the red, and we're going to try this again, what's going to be different? How are we going to make sure that we're
Yes.
not going to fall into that same category 2 years down the road?
So, Mr. Mayor and Councilor, that's a very good question. Let me take a crack at that. When the board voted to close quit subsidizing the course a couple of years ago, it was because we had accumulated a $2 million debt. After we closed the course, we voted as a board to sequester that debt and pay it off through balances that we could generate, any surpluses that would be available. And Mr. Baca can talk more accurately about all of these things, but the big idea was we had to shut it down, we had to take care of the debt, we put it in a separate category, and we made a commitment to pay it off. That helped us with our Higher Learning Commission accreditors, and as you know, we had big problems when Dr. Minner kind of turned the ship around. So we're in great shape now. We're in good shape. We want to be in great shape. And so what's different now is that this is a 2-year commitment. We're asking all of the community leaders to come together and support this. It's not just Highlands, it is a community asset. And we're opening it up for their ideas, their input. And the second piece, again, is the most important. This is an economic development opportunity for the community. It's not, it's not just for Highlands. If we can develop that, we can generate more capital in the community, more gross receipts, more property taxes. We can stimulate the private sector and the potential businesses that would organize around that. So once you get that going, now we have a place as someone on the Board of Regents where we can say, you know, we have adequate places for our faculty to live here, and we want you to live here. That's the kind of thing that makes it attractive to students who come to Highlands. And we want to attract more people to come to Highlands in Las Vegas. So the second piece is I recruited 4 years ago, two of my brothers' grandsons from Gallup, New Mexico. They came here and they loved the attention, they loved the smaller classes, they loved a lot of it. But they both transferred, and they said, there's just nothing to do on the weekends. So that's an issue we all know that exists. And one of the best ways to address that is to stimulate the economic development within the community. Because as we provide additional amenities, then there'll be more for kids to do. They'll stay here on the weekends, they'll spend more money. These are goals I think that we should all think about as a community in order to support keeping the students here in town and expanding the overall economic impact.
Yeah. Thank you. And, you know, my concern is also this. So far, we've talked about West Las Vegas, Robertson. Now, Robertson's willing to do 10,000 for the whole 2 years or each year?
Each year.
Each year.
Each year, okay. My concern, and I've always included Mora High School, the kids, Wagon Mound, Springer, you know, we're the hub, and they can't afford to have a golf course over there.
Yeah.
So, to me, when this item came before, you know, requested the legislature and we're talking about it over there, to me, I support it. Don't get me wrong, I support this project and everything that it does to the community. But I don't want it to be for the selected few, because at one time, it was for the selected few. And little by little, the schools kind of were kicked out and the community was kicked out and so forth. I mean, if that's going to be the case, I'd rather have the city of Las Vegas take it over back, the golf course, because it did belong to the city at one time. And we can extend our recreation department and our city hall and the whole works down that road.
Sure.
But I don't want to go that road. But I just want to make sure that everybody is invited to the golf course. And it's open to different functions in the community. I think the Lodgers tax also could help us promote the golf course and the events that go on there at the golf course. I did have one other issue, and maybe Maria can answer this. On the influent water, are we using more influent water than drinking water there, or what's the percentage? Or is it drinking water is only for the facility?
Mayor, councilors, more drinking water than effluent. They are using roughly $4,000 to $5,000 of effluent per year, and I have to do some quick calculations to tell me how many gallons it is.
Dollars or gallons?
$5,000 per year is what they spend on 4 to 5.
Okay. Now, thank you, Maria. The next, you touched base on the second phase of it, which is development. Okay, the mayor and I were here 20 years ago, and different people, different faces. At that time, the governor had somebody that wanted to come in here and do a development. The Highlands has water rights and a water well there at the golf course, and water rights and a well at Melody Park. And at that time, we were in a drought, and we're still in a drought, and we're still in restrictions. So, like, in the future, you know, I wouldn't mind sitting at the table for some kind of development. But take into consideration that the city of Las Vegas has spent millions of dollars on lawyers and attorneys for the last 50 years, and then millions of dollars on upgrading our water system and maintaining our water system, and upgrading our sewer plant and so forth in order for Highlands Hospital and everybody to be able to maintain the city. So those kind of things in the long run need to be considered because we're coming to the end of the rope, and eventually we're only going to have so many water rights and so much storage, and that's the part of the puzzle, because the Guayanas River ain't bringing any more water downhill. So I just, food for thought for the future on any development. And I know Mr. Romero is completely correct on the 5-year plan, comprehensive plan, on the growth of Las Vegas. And that's how come sometimes this mayor and council has to be tough and turn down outside or county development, because those water rights and water taps belong to the city of Las Vegas, and it's infield. And so just to brief you a little bit on that, but with that, Mr. Mayor, one more thing. There is a section of property right here behind the 1129 train. Now that, right here on Mills, and it's in front of the recreation center, since we're talking about funding and this and the other. You know, when I came in here a year ago, that was a jungle there. And I contacted the city first, and I said, let's clean up that whole place area. And I learned that it wasn't ours, that it belonged to New Mexico Highlands University. And I'm talking behind these buildings and the fence line for the golf course. So it's not being utilized for probably 30 years that you've owned it. I don't know for what reason it was fenced out this way, you know, but either way, I contacted Highlands and we got permission, and we did a joint project and we cleaned it up. And if you walk out here today, people utilize it. And then I extended that request to help the Salvation Army that donates food there every month, because I didn't want him on the roadway, on the state highways, or on the Mills Avenue on our streets, because the line would go all the way to Pinos. So we asked Highlands, New Mexico Highlands University, if they would allow us to make a chain around there, and they did, with no problem. But I would consider, and I talked to the mayor about this, to do a request for that property, you know, and whether it be in exchange or donated to the city of Las Vegas, and we could utilize that for a dog park or a track, outdoor track, conjunction with a rec center, or you know, other activities, since the rec center is there and we're limited on space. So just some thought to consider.
Real quickly, Mr. Councilman, I think you make some excellent points. What's different now is an important question. What's different is that we're organizing as a community, Highlands, the city, and San Miguel County. I'm not aware of any time that those three entities have pulled together for common purpose for an extended period of time. So what's different now is not only are you being asked to help subsidize, we're saying you've got a place at the table to help manage and drive it. So when we think and open up the second part, we're going to look at any and all requests about what's the best maximum use of that for the entire community. This whole idea of a dog park may fit very well with the overall master plan. So I think what's different and what gives me hope is that I do see those three players at the table, and I think that's going to make a huge difference.
And that's, you hit the nail on the head, because that's what this administration is about versus the past administrations. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Minner.
I had a question for Councilman Romero. You mentioned the city's, I don't know if you referred to it as the master plan.
Comprehensive master plan?
Are you referring to that MRA study, or?
Oh, it's a comprehensive.
That's separate from that other?
Yeah.
Oh,
Do you need a copy of the document?
okay. I have that MRA, but I don't think I have the comprehensive plan for the city.
Would you mind
that would
sending
be
it?
helpful.
Thank you, Cassandra. Well, thank you, gentlemen. We
It's
really
actually
appreciate
online.
your time.
It's online.
It's online?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll move swiftly on this. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you. Oh, you'll be here? Sure.
Thanks, Harpo. Thanks, Bill.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you.
before we move on, can we go ahead and give direction to our city manager on this item, to put it on the agenda for a vote and support?
Sure.
And Mr. Mayor, to add to that, yeah, I would probably request maybe a special meeting, because the sooner we get it, if we wait till next month, which is June,
Yeah.
they probably won't be able to open till July, so the sooner, we could have a special meeting maybe.
That's fine. We can figure that out. Thank you.
I think, Mr. City Attorney, we would have to vote on it, right, in order to support it on something like that? Yes.
Thank you. Sure.
So if we can schedule in a special meeting for that item?
That's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Next item, please.
Mr. Mayor, next item is presentation by Roy Montalban, Police Advisory Commission Chairman, reporting on the Police Advisory Commission accomplishments over the last few months and discussion on the bylaws and municipal charter.
Is Mr. Montalban here?
Right here.
Please, welcome. Thank you, Roy. Have a seat. I'd just like to remind, our presentations are getting longer, and I'm going to have to start timing our presentation, so 10 minutes if you don't mind. Thank you, Mr. Montalban.
Thank you.
And welcome.
Welcome to you too. Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm here to make a very quick request. Just get my other glasses on here. I'm the chair of the Las Vegas Police Community Commission, and we're here to request that the City Council fully define the Commission's powers and duties. The city charter establishes the purpose for this commission, but it also says that the City Council will fully define the powers and duties through ordinance. So we're asking that, make the request that you actually work on this ordinance, because until we have the ordinance, we can't really formulate a mission and bylaws that will be compliant with the city's, the governing body's wishes. I'm sure you're familiar with the section that specifies this, so I won't waste time reading it, but if you can do this, it'll help. We're requesting that you do this with the broad engagement of the community and the police department, as well as the members of the commission itself, because we feel that there's a tremendous amount of good that can be done for the citizens, for the community in general, as well as for the police department. And I think that if we had some clear direction and a mission, it would really be helpful for us to move forward. And secondly, I think if you're interested, I don't have to take time at this meeting to discuss it, but if you're interested, this group was sort of more formalized this year, but we've actually been engaged in working between the community and the police department for some time. So if you're interested in things that we have done or that we can do, we'd be happy to make a separate presentation or fill you in. I think, the liaison type of thing between the community and the police department, I think is very, very important. The more dialogue, the better. But anyway, that's why I'm here, to just make a request that you take a look at that ordinance. Take a look at creating an ordinance that specifies our mission.
Okay, definitely. We're on our way.
Okay.
Yeah. Councilor Romero's has already drafted some stuff, and we'll be doing more and moving on this swiftly.
Okay, excellent.
Absolutely.
So
Thank you,
that's it. So
Mr. Montalban.
what is that, like 6 minutes?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Einer. Thank you, Mr. Montalban.
You bet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was invited
Yeah.
participate in this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I didn't know. No, that's all right. This is why it's not on the agenda. To flesh that out a little more, I have kind of an unusual role being a commissioner on both the Police Advisory Commission and the Charter Commission. I'm going to take this thing off so you can hear me. And the charter, which I've read more times than anyone should have to, 6.05 specifically defines the role of the Police Advisory Commission as a body that reviews police complaints, or I should say complaints against the PD, as well as PD policies and procedures, and reports back directly to the governing body. And that is kind of the framework within which we need an ordinance that defines our powers and duties as required by the city charter. It doesn't require a resolution, it requires an actual ordinance to be enacted to enable us
to do that and any other duties which the city council determines is appropriate for that body. And of course, right now, we're not functional. And it would be absurd for us to even attempt to draft our bylaws because we won't know if they're compliant with your will. So that's why we're asking specifically that what is required by the city charter be done, that you enact the ordinance that actually fleshes out what we're going to do or what we need to do so that we can do it.
Okay.
We can all be compliant with law.
We're on our way to do that. It's in the process, and Mr. Romero is working diligently on doing a draft. Do you guys feel comfortable meeting, or should your commission be suspended until that time?
I think that we can continue to meet. In fact, we have a meeting coming up, I believe, tomorrow, and but we just are not in a position where we can actually pass any decisions on things.
Very well.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, if I can, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll see if I could, maybe Cassandra could get their emails and I'll share that with them, and then they could kind of, look at it. But at the next meeting, I will have something for the council. I'll share it with.
Fantastic, thank you. And I agree with Roy. I mean, there's absolutely no harm in our meeting at this point. We're just not able to do
We're not going to vote on anything.
what we need to do.
Okay. Well, we're
Mr.
moving on.
Mr. Mayor, if I could add to that, I know that there's kind of in the past kind of been some concern from PD as to, well, this oversight committee doesn't have any experience or police knowledge, and that's kind of not, the intent is just basically look over some of the policies and procedures, and if there's stuff that can be updated. At the end of the day, they're just going to report to council, and the council, with the advice of the attorney, will be making those decisions. So the decision-making really won't be made by the board commission. They're just being an advisory.
Correct.
I think
Right.
you're correct.
For context, when you talk about community oversight, review is really the lowest level of community involvement. In other words, we're not going to have an investigator, we're not going to have a Paul Scotch to pull like Albuquerque has. We're not going to do an independent investigation of the facts. What will happen is that at the conclusion of the PD's investigation of a complaint, don't need to know. Sorry.
That's some strong stuff.
That'll kill anything.
Sorry. Of the PD's investigation of a complaint, it would then go to the board to review, right? To give it a second look and make sure there weren't questions that should have been asked that weren't, that, there was nothing that should have been examined that wasn't, and then we would come to you and say, okay, there was this, we agree with the decision, it looks thorough, there was this, it doesn't seem like the premise and the conclusion agree, or we think that the PD should have a second look.
Very well. The other thing, are you done, Mr. Romero?
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing I'd just like to throw out to you, and I've been meaning to visit with you, but I'd really like to explore community policing with your group. And so moving forward with a plan to do more community policing, getting police officers out of their cars, walking the beat, walking the block, talking to people, that type of community policing. So I'll make it to your next meeting, not tomorrow's, but the next meeting.
Okay.
All right.
And I know we're over 10 minutes. Let me just say two things really quickly. I think that we can really help with communication between the citizens and the police department, and we can also assist the police department in programs for them that help increase police community involvement.
I agree.
Okay, so and that's a pretty wide area, but that's totally separate than what Lee was just talking about as well. So just kind of think about that.
Mr. Machado.
Yeah, so just for point of clarification, the board understands that they report to mayor and council with a recommendation, not to the chief.
Yes, that's,
Okay.
Yeah, so, we kind of have a liaison role between the community as well as
Yeah.
the
All
governing
right.
body.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
All right.
thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Mayor, next and last presentation presentation is by Chuck Rago, Film Events Coordinator. He's providing an update on upcoming city events.
Very well. Welcome. I'd also like to recognize Nancy Carmelillo. She's on the Fiesta board, puts in endless hours and goes to lots of meetings. Thank you, Nancy.
Welcome, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you know, we currently have the 2 productions still continuing in Las Vegas. We have a couple more looking to come in. The fiestas are being planned, as you know. That's pretty much where we're at. I mean, we had a meeting with Highlands today, and I guess I'll be coming back before you in a few minutes to talk about that. So, do you have any questions, Orby?
I would like to propose that the city develop a survey for these companies to fill out, about how their experience was, did you have enough resources? Was the city of Las Vegas attentive? Just a 10-question or 5-question questionnaire for these companies, franchise companies and movie companies. Because I think it's important for us to know if there isn't something that we're not doing, we should be doing, then I think it's important that we hear from them before they leave town, and sort of provide that customer service to them.
Okay.
It's just an idea, but maybe the film office already has
They do.
a survey that we could implement.
They do.
All right. And so the fiesta, the quasi-fiestas or the fiestas, we are having a fiesta of sort. And so there will be music in the park.
Correct.
On the 2nd and 3rd.
2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And then they're having
It's the Fiestas of Las Vegas featuring New Mexico Music Explosion.
Okay. And that's at Perkins Stadium? Maybe?
Maybe. I'll be back before you in a few minutes to discuss that.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Olivari?
Yeah, Chuck, I had some complaints from some of the band players that they're not being treated fairly. I know that the Fiesta Committee made a recommendation of the people that are coming in, the bands that are coming in. What's the situation on that?
Fiestas. Some of the bands felt like they were being excluded from the New Mexico Music Explosion. When we initially started this, it was to start the Fridays al Fresco that Las Vegas first currently starts. They have that from July, I don't know to what month. We started it in May and extended it to October. The whole concept was to put local bands on the Fridays al Fresco because they get to play for a longer time and they would all be paid a specific amount of money. The New Mexico Music Explosion, which we started, was to bring, like we currently do for fiestas, is to bring headliners, like Roberto Grego, Sorelia, Miggy Cruz, those kind of performers. The Fiesta Committee has always done the headliners for Las Vegas. We're the only fiestas in the state that actually pay their entertainment. So we didn't do anything out of the ordinary. Local bands perform on Friday Nights al Fresco, and then the New Mexico Music Explosion would have the headliners. And we did invite a lot of the local bands to participate in the music explosion. Some we couldn't afford, their prices were too high. Others didn't want to perform at the spot that we had available. So, but we did reach out to them.
Thank you, Chuck.
Any other questions?
Are we on filming or fiestas?
It's both. Both. It's a presentation.
It's a presentation for events.
Is there another, there's another agenda item where we're going to talk more about the...
I believe one is for lodgers and the other is for the actual fiestas.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, since we're on city events and fiestas, I am going to be pretty blunt about this. Like I was 6 weeks ago, I am in support of a full-blown Las Vegas 4th of July fiestas dash S Expo New Mexico dash COVID-19. And I support the fiestas to be at the Plaza Park like every other year or every year for the past 50-some years or whatever years, amount of years.
Thank you.
I think that, like I mentioned 6 weeks ago, I thought that the governor would open up by July 1st, and hopefully she'll open up completely by July 1st, and everybody can move forward. Again, those that don't want to go to the fiestas can stay home. You know, those that don't want to go shopping can stay home. I think that we've endured a long year of pandemic, and we've done the right things, and I think we deserve this, and our citizens deserve this. I think it's a long time coming. All the musicians have done their part of quarantine and staying secluded for this whole year, and I'm sure they want to get out. I think that having it, I know, and I can't explain. I spent a couple of hours with the Fiesta Committee when they had their meeting a couple of days ago, and there was a lot of frustration and so forth for different reasons. But my direction there was just for them to stay focused on what they're doing. They're doing a good job. They're trying to bring economic development to Las Vegas, and we're going to see it. We had challenges as far as planning the parade, where to have it, what streets, where to have the firework display. We've increased the budget by $10,000. So, it's time that we celebrate and we move on with life. There's always going to be that 10% that are never going to get their shots. And I recommend that on Friday, I'll ask the city manager, if it's okay with mayor and council, to even have a table there for people to take a shot, get vaccinated. Another table also for our HR department to recruit people for the positions that we have open. And I encourage our staff to extend that option to New Mexico Highlands University. The NMBHI has like 200 vacant positions. West Las Vegas and whomever has any vacant positions or openings in their, we have managers positions at McDonald's and at Pizza Hut. So I'd like to extend that invitation for them to set up a booth or a table there so that they can recruit people to get this thing going again, get back to work and move America forward.
Councilman, that invitation has been extended. At this last Friday al fresco, we did have the Leo Maestos and his people were there vaccinating people, and there was a line. So a lot of people did get vaccinated.
I just want to say the vaccine is not effective until 14 days after you take it.
Right.
Just because you get a shot today doesn't mean you can go around without a mask. You are still considered unvaccinated 14 days after you take the shot.
But I was happy to see that people were being vaccinated.
Yeah, and then another thing, even if you do get your 2 shots, you're still in jeopardy of getting it, but not maybe as hard as the first time around. But even our police department should set up a table there, see if they can do any recruiting on that Friday. Have staff there.
What Friday?
On Friday, July the 2nd, at the park for the fiestas.
I didn't know we were having the fiestas.
Well, this is what this meeting's all about.
Now? Right now?
Yeah, right now.
That's
Is it not about fiestas and?
Well, this one is about events.
City events?
City events.
Is fiestas fall under city events?
I believe so.
I disagree with you, Mr. Montoya. Who doesn't want to have the fiestas at the park? Number one, if the governor opens June 30th, there's no way to plan a whole fiesta in 3 days. The other thing is that the reason why they were doing what they were doing was to protect the public safety of the public.
And I understand that's where the confusion came in, Mr. Mayor. But things have changed, and the Fiesta Committee has it organized to where they can have fiestas at the park.
We're still in turquoise.
Yes.
And so.
The whole state is except for one county.
Right, so we have to limit the number of people at the plaza.
And you have to limit it to people at the Perkins Stadium. And
Absolutely.
And the downfall, you know, I know they've had a meeting with Highlands and so forth, and the downfall to that is that you're gonna have people on the sun all day long, in the bleachers, because New Mexico Highlands University is not gonna allow anybody on their turf. And even the bandstand might be questionable as to how far in the turf they can get in.
I'm just saying that we're going to be restricted, and there's no way to, unless we block every entrance around the plaza and turn everybody away, we have to keep it at a certain number. And the plaza is not considered a venue. The plaza is considered an open space. And the only things that are allowing that many people are an official venue, like a concert or a Sleda concert hall or any of that stuff. The plaza is not considered a venue. And so we have to be very careful on how we proceed. And don't get me wrong, who doesn't want to have the fiestas? Everybody wants to have the fiestas at the park. But we're doing this for public safety, and to open the entire town up like that, even if the state is open completely on June 30th, it's all about planning. You know, it's all about public safety. So I think we should let the Fiesta Committee do what they do and plan what they do, and you know, to voice your opinion is totally okay, but.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I can.
Mr. Emerald?
At the end of the day, the fiestas are basically to celebrate Nuestra Señora de Dolores. I mean, the whole thing is the entrada and all that. So to call it the fiestas, we're too late to actually do that, right? I mean,
Correct.
that alone takes.
We're planning next year's now. It takes over a year.
So at the end of the day, I mean, we call it, I mean, it's not really the fiestas, because that's the main focal point is the entrada, you know, all the cultural aspect to the fiestas. You know, that's the way I look at it.
The mass and the whole thing.
And the mass and everything, but at the end of the day, at Perkins, you know, this whole thing has turned into a mess between artists in the community, and it's a shame the way it's turned out, but at the end, we were here to give direction is to keep the community safe, and the best avenue to have actually something at that time, before everything came out, the turquoise or all that, was to have something for the community, and the safest bet was at Perkins Stadium. And of course, now things are opening up, the whole thing changes. But what if, I mean, we could always use the what ifs. What if we don't go to fully open and we plan everything at the plaza, and it still can't be called, I mean, it can be called the fiestas, but we're not getting the full cultural aspect of the fiestas, because we're not ready to do that part. You know, we can't have the crowning of the reina and all that stuff. But my biggest concern with this now is I totally support both aspects. I understand, you know, we got to try to control as much as we can, versus at the plaza, we can't control it without, the way the mayor said, is closing the whole thing off. And still at that point, there's still access to certain buildings that people can go in through the buildings and still go into the park without us even being able to control it. So the thing is, are we going to have the public safety? Are we going to be able to man both Perkins and Plaza? Or how are we?
And it's my job to plan for, I know everyone says, well, the governor's going to open it up July 1. I can't count on that. I need to plan and take the safety of the citizens and protect the city from any liability. So part of that is to plan for a contingency. If we backslide, and everyone will say, well, we won't. I can't count on that. So I have to plan for that. Our rationale was to keep it at the stadium, to be able to, if we do backslide, we can still have it at the stadium and just decrease the numbers. Well, after our meeting today, logistically, it's not going to work, because we're not allowed on the turf, we're not allowed on the track. So if we have our food vendors there, the people in the stadium can't cross the track, they can't cross the turf to even get to the food. Our police officers can't contain what happens at the stadium plus what happens at the park. There's just not enough police officers. So logistically, it's becoming a nightmare. PD feels we can safely have it at the Plaza Park. I don't understand how we can control the numbers, and it's my job to make sure that that does happen. But logistically, I don't see how that would be possible. Police Chief Crispin and Deputy Chief Stumberg feel they can. I defer to their expertise in that area. But the committee's recommendation will go off based off, I have to take our direction from Mayor and Council. But logistically, it's becoming quite difficult. And we're at the point now where we can't have a full-blown fiesta. I can get you the entertainers, we can have music in the park with some vendors. It'll be at a smaller design, but we can still do it. But I need a definitive answer from Mayor and Council as to what you want me to do. Because we're at that point now where contracts are being signed with artists to put on the event. We will still provide the fireworks, we'll still provide the parade. It's just the venue, as the mayor says, if we have it at the Plaza Park, there's 6 entrances to the keyhole. So I'd have to have physically block every entrance and
I see positives in the, I mean, and maybe things have changed since we last talked, but I don't know. Because the plaza area was going to kind of continue as a Friday al fresco event during these days, am I right? Has that changed or not?
No, it's still the Fridays al fresco.
Okay, so if it's kept small like that, the bigger part was the additional, I mean, we all know, and I don't think, well, maybe not Dr. Taylor, or you guys have been here, but the amount of staff that it takes, and it's not only PD and fire. I mean,
parks,
community development, and I don't know where you guys are with that, but every single one of you guys was working that event.
Right.
You had solid waste, you had
Public Works.
Public Works. I mean, so many things that, and I guess this question would be to Dr. Taylor and to Bill, do we have the commitment from every department to be able to do that at the spur of the moment? Because,
right,
you know, I mean,
and it would take all of us to
some
make
of
it
these
come out.
employees might have taken on vacation. I don't know. I'm just wondering, you know, there's all these other aspects that we're not even considering right now. There's all the other additional employees that are going to, I mean, I know you guys do comp time, but do we have the commitment to do something? I don't think that the time is right. I would love to have everything at the park, but you always have the what ifs. But then again, the public safety, you know, police and fire, if they have their concerns, it's...
Even if the governor lifts the mandate, and we don't have to fence everything off and people just can come, there again, we're still going to need all that support, staff support to make it come off. There's just a lot of things that are involved putting it together that we're forced with, that it's going to take a lot to make it happen.
And just to remind people, San Miguel County only has 50% vaccination.
But we're not close to the 60 yet.
The Fiesta Committee really does need some direction on this. In March, we really felt that we needed to cancel Fiesta by performing due diligence in the spirit of protecting public health. You can't pull an event out of your back pocket on the spur of the moment. I have done lots of large events. We are not of the opinion that you can have, if you all decide that you want us to do Perkins, we still have to negotiate with Highlands, but we can't do Perkins and have 3 days of music at the park. I just don't think Las Vegas has the staffing power to pull that off. We were given direction that security would be handled by Highlands and the state police at Perkins or Sanchez Family Stadium, but apparently now the Las Vegas PD, I guess, has spoken and they're willing to take the lead on
Well, it doesn't mean that we exclude other agencies.
No, not at all. But it's just a question of who do you call? Ghostbusters first? I mean, who do you call?
So Highlands would be willing to help at Perkins?
Well,
I
there
think they
again,
have
we Highlands would help, City PD, State Police, and SO would all have to be involved to make it come off. But with Sanchez Stadium, there again, I mean, we're not allowed on the turf or the track. So logistically, how do we control those crowds? I mean, we have 3,000, 4,000 people in the stadium, and they can't get on the turf or the track.
Right now, the stadium capacity is, I think, 2,850. And then, according to the fire marshal, I think at the meeting, which I can't believe it was only yesterday, you have to take into account the bands and support staff. So that would take capacity down to 2,500 in the stadium. They've got a capacity of, I think, 5,000, 75% is 3,800, and then we would have to take it down. So, you know, the Fiesta Committee went from working on the 2021 Fiesta to canceling it, to starting to work on the 2022 Fiesta. Then you all decided, no, we want something, and we're pretty much at 6s and 7s. We don't know what to do. I mean, we've got music lined up, we've got food trucks lined up. We need to know where to put them.
So what's the capacity at Sanchez Stadium?
It's 5,000, but 3,800, and then we'd have to take it down because of staff.
And then it's 33%
It's 33%.
Yeah, 33.
at a public venue.
Right.
Yeah.
So that brings it down considerably.
And the vendors have to be outside the stadium.
Well, initially Highlands wanted us to put him in the parking lot where Nick Tyrone Music Building, and then they said we could put him inside the stadium.
But
So-
depending on the Department of the Environment.
Right.
Here's the thing.
That brings it even down
The
more.
stadium has, the whole stadium has a 5,000 capacity. The bleachers are 3,800. So they're giving us their numbers based off of just the bleachers.
And the meeting today,
So
they
that's
want
why
us
it
to
brings
only
it
use,
down.
they only want us to use the west side bleachers as of the meeting today, not the east
Oh, I
side.
missed that.
Yeah.
I'm
So
sorry, I
how
don't
many,
even know
how
that.
many does the bleachers hold?
The bleachers hold 3,800.
So 33% of that is what?
I don't know, I don't have the phone. I'm not a math.
Not very much.
Not a lot.
How many, Bill?
Well, 3,800, if you're only going to use one, assuming you have equal seating on both sides, you're going to have
Yep.
1,900. And so 1,900, a third of that's going to be about 600 people.
That's all we can admit to the stadium. According to this.
Each day. Yeah.
And they can't be walking around.
No.
No.
They can't be on the
But
track.
you really, well, the track is a wreck, according to yesterday's meeting.
Right, and they
So-
said today they don't want anyone on the track.
They don't have it on the track either. You know, if there's another Las Vegas venue,
West Las Vegas has offered their stadium, but it holds 2,000 something, and then you'd have to take that percentage again.
It's still 33% at any venue.
So
It-
I don't see it.
you know, we're also talking about having wristbands, a different color for each day at the stadium. And so you would come in with only that day's color would be allowed in.
And even if the governor opens up everything, face masks are still going to be required, and there's still no dancing.
Even outdoors. At a public event outdoors, you still have to wear masks.
So I don't know, there's a lot we're waiting on still.
And this is the hard part, is that I think we're the only community, honestly,
That's having.
planning this type of big event right now.
Correct.
So we're kind of, it's like I said, a couple months ago, is that we need to have something, because whether we do, it might not be big events, but other communities are gonna have it, and we're gonna lose out. And not only that is, I think our community has been very safe through COVID. Other communities aren't as safe as us. So if we could keep our people as safe as we can here, that's a benefit. Of course, this whole thing is, like I said, I'd hate to be you, Chuck.
But we're only 50% vaxxed, and even my staff at the shop said, look at what happened in Santa Rosa. we're trying to make a decision before any Memorial Day stuff happens. If there's a bloom after Memorial Day, then what do you do?
And I'll let you know that we've had calls, people from Texas, Nevada, Arizona, Colorado, who are booking rooms. They're talking about it. It was on the radio this morning on Radio Suave. People are planning to come to the music explosion,
Well, it's been advertised.
right? So,
So Chuck, isn't it 75% outdoor venue?
No, not according to, right now in Turquoise.
Outdoor?
No,
Indoor is
in an
33.
entertainment venue, it's 33%.
yeah, I think what Leo Maestas told us was we would go with the open venue, the open one, the mass gathering, was 75% is what he had told
Oh,
us.
yeah, 70, sorry. Yeah, 33.
He had told us 75%. So
So that's 2,500 people in Perkins.
yeah. So if she opens it up,
Okay, so let's use this, I mean, the plaza area, let's use this. Let's say we're going with plaza. How are we gonna control that 75% in that area?
You can't, the plaza
And-
is not a public event space. It is a public park.
No, I'm just.
Turquoise, it's
I'm-
150
Well,
people.
It's
No,
not,
no.
it's not considered
An
a
event.
venue.
right, but.
It's an open space.
What Deputy Chief Span informed us was that he contacted the governor's office, and because it was a concert-type venue, we were using it as a concert-type venue, those numbers could be adjusted. So it would allow for more people.
Did they give you a number?
In the plaza area?
He gave us a number, but I didn't write it down.
In the plaza area?
Yes. So we could, I mean, technically in that arena, we're okay.
We still have to limit the number.
But you,
Yes. we do.
unless you fence off the plaza, you can't limit the number of people coming in. Unless you make people sign up and get pre-sales and come with a wristband. But then the police are gonna have to, pardon me, but police it.
Deputy Chief Stumberg feels the police department could handle it. So
We'll do whatever you want.
I got that assurance today from both chief
And I just
deputy
want to
chief.
make this comment, you know, there's individuals in the community think that the fiestas, this is a first year that we're a stepping stone to shut down fiestas from the plaza area, and as long as I'm here, I'll never let that happen. This was supposed to be an alternative for the fiestas to keep our community safe, and I think that needs to be a message that we need to send out, that never was the intent to get rid of course, there's certain individuals and that are saying that, and I'll never let that happen. Me, and I'm sure any of us would let that happen, you know. I mean, it's a part of our community, a part of our culture. My take on this, you know, and I supported the Perkins idea because it was the best way to keep the community safe, but now with everything opening, the timing has been tough, and I don't know.
So I'm getting advice from Leo Maestas. He's saying as of July 1st, there will be no capacity restrictions if the governor opens the state.
But see, as the event planner, I have to plan for that.
Right.
I can't,
No, I understand.
yeah.
We can't go on what is.
Right.
You can blame us, you blame me.
And the only way we get to opening up the state fully is 60% of the entire state population.
I'm not worried about New Mexicans as much as I'm worried about Texans and people from Oklahoma and Colorado and
Nevada.
Arizona. I mean,
Yeah.
you could put sawhorses at every street coming into the plaza, the top of the keyhole, and have a ticket taker and a cop at every entrance. That's about the only way you
The
can do it.
breezeway.
But
Well, no, because you would block off the circle. You would just block off, and let them park and let them come up, and I'm sorry, we're at capacity.
No, but regardless, you're still in the same boat as far as,
right, because if you
People-
allow so many, you still have the
have-
excess out there.
you
so.
still have the same, I mean, if you're gonna get COVID, you're gonna get it regardless. If there's one person or if there's, well, it takes two, but if there's two people or if there's 3,000.
You know, frankly, I'm at the point where let Darwin and natural selection have at it. You know, I mean, really. You can only plan for so much, and nobody, this is a no-win situation. Nobody's going to be happy with whatever the decision.
Bottom line, we need a decision.
Well, I think it's important for the public to know that it wasn't our intention to remove the Fiesta from the plaza, period. Every decision we were making was for the intent of public safety.
We've had death threats because of this.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had death threats. We've had people saying that we're trying to get away from fiestas and biker rallies and everything, and that's never been true. But
And Chuck, I like the fact that the committee came up with the idea that they would limit the number of food trucks at the park. And the business owners would be able to open up their restaurants and their places of business to be able to get some of that grocery tax.
yeah, on Fridays,
Instead
we
of
invite
bringing
them
these
all.
people from China or
Right.
all the junk stuff.
Right.
So,
Right.
I think that's very positive for the community and the business, because I've talked to business owners in that area, and I've asked them, and they tell me if they bring those Chinas and all this, or if they change it to Highlands, they're closing. They've already told me.
Right.
So to me, I asked them, if we just have it here at the park, and we only have limited vendors because of the time frame and all that, would you stay open? And they said, yeah, we'll stay open. We'll feed the people. So-
And they have. On Friday nights, we invited all the businesses in the community to open up, have sidewalk sales without permit fees, and they've been staying open, so.
So let's do this. Let's plan on the plaza. And if the governor doesn't open, fiestas are canceled, period.
Okay.
Is that enough guidance?
Yes, sir. The other
Hi, I'm
question.
on Capital.
The other question we had is on the vendors. Traditionally, it's been $45 per square foot for the vendors. This year being that it is a different year, do you want to charge for the vendors, or?
I don't think so.
No?
If a food truck wants to go and set up, I mean, this is a different year.
So I'll ask this, Mayor, is then how do you, with so many food trucks, local food trucks that we have here, how do you pick and choose?
You
Well, they
just
can
invite
still
everybody.
apply, but you just don't charge them.
And you invite everybody with a
Yeah.
food truck to
Yeah.
park wherever they want.
Okay, so, and the reason to not charge is if the governor doesn't come through, you're canceling it.
And you don't have a contract with them.
And you don't have a contract, and nobody's out money, and yada, yada, yada.
Maybe we could pick an area specifically for the food trucks and invite everybody with a food truck to come.
Okay.
But let's plan it that way, and if the governor doesn't open the state, then we cancel everything
And we will know that
by June 30th.
Pow.
That's the quagmire, I know.
You see all this gray hair, Mayor?
No,
My last question then, for the parade, have you gotten any notification from the governor if she's going to be the parade marshal?
no.
He's waiting.
Okay.
Mr.
So-
Mayor, if I may, I would like to ask Mayor and Council, see if they, due to this pandemic and everything that's gone on, if they would consider this year's parade not having an entry fee for them.
It's up to the Fiesta Committee to make that recommendation.
Well, here's my question. If the whole state is not open, do we still do the parade? And we just ditch the park?
It goes the same way for the 4th of July fireworks.
I think a lot hinges on June 30th, and maybe sooner. The governor may do it sooner if we reach 60% sooner. We're at 53 today, and there's a steady increase of 10% daily.
Right.
So she might do it earlier, but I know that doesn't give you enough time to plan. And this was just really all we were doing was to protect the public safety. We were not doing this for any other reason, no cultural, nothing. This had to do with saving lives. So, yeah, I mean, is there a reason? Do they still get a permit to be in the parade?
Well, traditionally, we've had a permit. We could do away with it this year if you'd like.
I don't know, I think we should still have a permit, because you don't want just
You
anybody.
need to know who's coming
Right.
and
Yeah,
So for parade marshal, Plan B would be to have first responders.
first responders and veterans.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
If the descendants of the
Baton Death March.
Baton Death March come, they're going to be put first in the parade.
Okay.
Yeah. They're the only veteran group that hasn't been celebrated in Las Vegas.
Correct.
Dr. Taylor?
Just a question for Chuck. If you're going to do this on the plaza, does that make a difference on what kinds of bands that we're going to have on the park? We're still going to have the groups that we're confident are going to have at Perkins Stadium? Or?
Yes, because everybody's been waiting to see where they're going to.
And I need something, this would be advisable. Any person that says, I absolutely want this time spot, there's no guaranteeing they're going to have a time spot. Only because of all the planning and everything, and you have to work around everything. Some
already
people
got the
say,
lineup. Yeah.
I want this time, and I'm only going to perform at this time, and if we can't accommodate them, we cannot.
Okay.
Just due to this circumstance. Next year, it'll be a lot better and a lot organized.
And to add to that, Mr. Mayor, is that some bands that felt, and I've explained to a couple of them, that felt they were left out of this music explosion. Well, they're playing in the Friday al fresco for 3 hours.
2.5.
Or 2.5 hours. So that was the reason as to, you already had your opportunity to play, so this one was to give, others an opportunity on this one day. So that's what happened, and,
Right.
but I think you guys have accommodated now to where others, you've
Right.
fit them in the schedule, and
We wanted to give our local bands more time, so we gave them the 2.5 hours on Fridays. For the New Mexico Music Explosion, they're limited to 45 minutes to an hour. So, and they were.
And when you say New Mexico Music Explosion, is that,
Well, it's Fiestas de Las Vegas featuring the New Mexico Music.
okay, but.
And we called it that because.
But hold on, this is my question, is that proprietary? Is it owned by someone?
No.
So for the record, it's not owned by Gonzalo?
No, we came up with that name, he and I came up with that
Okay.
name because.
Because that was another thing they were throwing in my face. So, and now for the record, if a local band or mom and pop want to call and want to play at the park, who do they call?
They call myself or Steve Ledger.
Okay, so let them know, let the public know that any local band, if they want to play, call Chuck with enough time and we'll get you
And
scheduled.
we're booked. I have booked bands all the way till October 8th.
Yeah.
So there is no more room. And we can't afford any more anyway.
Can I throw one more wrench into this?
No. Just kidding.
Please? So, if the governor does not open the state, there will be nothing in the park July 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
Well, July 2nd would be Friday. We do have the music.
Well, the reason I asked that question is if people are used to coming to the park for the 4th of
Oh.
July, you may have more people than can be there show up for Fridays al fresco.
That was my point.
So my question is that if the governor does not open the state, everything is dark except for the parade and fireworks.
Parades will not be allowed if the state is not opened.
Okay, so if she doesn't open the state, everything is dark?
Yep.
Fireworks, parade?
Yep.
Okay.
Maybe not fireworks, but the parades, it's exclusive in that health order.
Okay, I was not aware of that.
Mhm.
Okay.
the fireworks would have to be in their car,
Yeah.
to kind of.
Usually it's like that. They say, go for it, ask questions later.
Well, it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission, but normally that's solved by nobody died. but that makes
Because of the
sense.
economic development, if we get National Guard over here, well, that'll help our town.
And you know,
So we're asking for 3.5 million, we don't want to.
Well, we don't want to
Ruffle the
burn our
feathers.
bridges.
Yeah, don't be burning bridges.
yeah, so,
Okay, so if,
clear as mud?
Well,
Clear as
They're
mud.
gonna hurt me in Santa Fe, so,
Okay, so,
the way they open up the state.
so the decision, just for point of clarification, Mayor, Plaza Park pending the governor's mandate.
Can I just add this little caveat, is that nothing should happen after the parade?
Yeah, Music doesn't start till 1 o'clock.
Okay. Because, you know, people always went to the parade, and
And
in
that's true.
Groves, they went to the park.
Yeah.
So nothing
Right.
should happen after the parade,
Correct.
just to control the crowd and all that stuff.
Correct.
Chuck, just kind of a recommendation to the local businesses there. I know, you know, if we are going to have that, of course, the kids like those lights, so maybe the local businesses there can, you know, the kid novelty items, I mean, they're good sellers, so maybe those vendors might want to.
Mike said no to nothing made in China.
Hey, but
You could put one on
the
the
local
jumbo
vendors
cars.
selling them, the
The
local
kids.
merchants selling them.
Just kidding.
I will talk to the merchants.
I know, the kids love those.
The kids love them.
I know.
That's why they buy them, but.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are we going to come back and talk about fiestas again, or are we
Yes.
done?
Yes, it's for the lodger's tax later.
Yeah, we'll come back.
Thank you.
Just checking.
Next order of business, please. Thank you very much for all your work, Fiesta Committee.
Mr. Mayor, we have our finance report by our finance director, Jesus Vaquera.
Mr. Vaquera, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This is the finance report for the month ending April 30th, 21. This should be at 84%. The general fund revenue is at 99%. The expenditures are at 72%, with a surplus of 1.4 million. On the enterprise fund, revenue is at 86%, expenditures at 70%, with a little over $1 million surplus. The rec department has revenue at 74%, expenditures at 73%, $23,000 surplus. Lodgers tax, revenue is at 204%, expenditures at 32%, a surplus of 190,000. Any questions?
Nope.
Thank you.
Is there anything in this report you need to tell us about, Mr. Vaquera?
No, sir.
Okay, that would raise any flags?
We're
doing
good.
good? Good
Yes,
job,
sir.
Mr. Vaquera.
Mr. Mayor, I just had one question to Sus.
Yes, sir.
On the audit pertaining to the emergency plan for IT.
We
When will you guys put
are,
something together on that?
we set a directive to our directors to have the IT plan fully functional by Friday. That means they have a link that they can go in there and update, because the majority of that IT plan was missing the contacts, the directors, the numbers, and the following person down. So that section of it, they're working on it. It should be done by Friday.
And, well, it's kind of, I'll talk with Bill on that.
Okay.
It's not really.
Thank you, Mr. Vaquera. Next order of business.
Moving on to business items. The first is to conduct a public hearing for business item 1. I have not received any comments for the public hearing. It is item 1, adoption of ordinance number 2104, an ordinance to amend the code of the city of Las Vegas by amending section 200-40 and section 301-11 entitled Alternative Method of Abatement. This ordinance is enacted pursuant to sections 2.02 of the City of Las Vegas Municipal Charter and is an exercise of the city's own powers.
I'll entertain a motion to go into a public hearing.
So does anybody have to be sworn in, Mr. Mayor?
Do we do that after we enter the public hearing?
I'm sorry.
Is there a motion to enter a public hearing?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Motion by Mr. Romero. Second, please.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Olivari. Roll call, please.
Councilor Montoya?
Yes.
Councilor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
Councilor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, a second by Councilor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Is there anyone that needs to be sworn in besides Bill?
We have our city attorney possibly, so I will go ahead and swear them both in.
Very well.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name for the record. Do solemnly swear that I will tell the truth during my testimony to council this evening.
I'm sorry, is it possible for you to be sworn in as a member of the public? Or is that out of the picture?
It was for public comment. You needed to give your public comment at that time, like 3:38.
Even during a public hearing?
Is that pertaining to this item?
It's pertaining to the item, correct?
Yes.
I had something on there, and it's up to the mayor and council if you want to accept that.
I'd like to
I had
allow
a
it.
deadline.
I'd like to allow it.
If you'll raise your right hand, state your name for the record.
Lee Einer,
Solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
to tell the truth
to tell the truth
during my testimony to council this evening.
during my testimony to council this evening.
Thank you, Bill.
Mr. Mayor, Council, this ordinance change came up a couple of meetings back, and there was some questions about whether it allowed the public to take civil action. And so we added additional language on line item paragraph E to provide that information that people can obviously take this to district court or whatever court they would like. And that's the only change to the ordinance from the last time.
And what was the reason for the change?
We removed the terminology, and Scott, if I get this wrong, let me know. Or do you want to go ahead and?
Yeah, let me just jump in to save
do it
you
right
the-
first time.
Save you the, there was concern expressed that in changing this ordinance, it eliminated the ability for a resident of Las Vegas to take their neighbor to court if in a situation where the neighbor had some type of a nuisance issue. Their neighbor could potentially take them to court after speaking with the municipal judge. The role of his court is a criminal, within the context of a criminal court, he does fines. That's not where you go to change your name, that's not where you go to do civil issues. And so what we did is we added this paragraph E at the end, which basically reaffirms the right of any resident within the city to go and file that at the district court, so that there's a remedy there. The nice thing about the district court, if you don't like the result, you can appeal it up to the Court of Appeals, you can appeal it to the Supreme Court. Things that happen in the municipal court level, especially civil things, because they're not those, it doesn't handle civil issues. There's no availability made in the New Mexico rules regarding courts to appeal outside of the municipal court for a civil issue. So what we're trying to do is keep these issues where one neighbor wants to sue another at the district court level and not keep them in the municipal court level. And so what we did is we preserved that right by enshrining it in this paragraph.
Okay. Just for the record. Anybody else would like to speak?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Arner.
Thank you. My first concern about this is really procedural. I'm assuming that the packet you're looking at is the same one that was posted on the website, and that lists the purpose of this as amending 20-13, which is municipal fees, and that actually has nothing to do with the body of the amendment. So if that's what was advertised and published, I think we need a do-over, just as a practical issue. That's a substantial clerical problem with the entire amendment. As far as paragraph E goes, As you know, states can legislate to control municipal laws, but municipalities really don't legislate to control state laws. So that paragraph in red does nothing. Do you follow me?
Yes.
It's state law. 3-8-8B remains intact no matter what we have to say about it. So that really contributes nothing. And my concern beyond that is that as legislators, you really need to be able to look at what existing language is being removed and what new language is being inserted. And this wasn't even presented to you in that fashion. You had this big thing in red, says, look over here, this is the new thing. And then you had paragraph B of 200-40 and 301-11 that's been completely rewritten to eliminate the ability of a Las Vegas resident to go to municipal court and file a complaint in the city's name. And the difference between that and going to district court is, I go to district court, yes, I can file a complaint in the state's name, that compels the state to take action. What has been on the books compels the city to take action, and I think that is the area of discomfort here, that it feels like an intrusion of the will of the public upon perhaps community development or the city attorney's office, and indeed it is. But it's an important right if abatement issues just aren't being taken care of. My girlfriend lives right in back of what we call the Adams family house on Railroad, 733. It's been burnt out since 2017. The roof has gone off the top of it, the pigeons love it. You know, we have hundreds of them visiting the backyard, and it just doesn't seem like there's any action. And I can speak also as just an aggrieved resident. It's nice to be able to go to something like that as a final resort and say, well, I have some sort of a cudgel that I can wield at, you know, not ruinous expense to myself through a lawyer to make this thing happen. And I would hope you consider that in what you do tonight, and also consider, again, just the fact, that 20-13 also somehow found its way into some portion of the amended language.
Thank you, and I'll refer to the county clerk, to the city clerk and to the attorney. I do believe that is a wrong number.
Yeah, two quick things. What was put out on the agenda didn't mention 20-13, so there was sufficient notice given in the agenda that was published. Yes, that is a clerical error, not sufficient enough to defeat it if the council wants to move forward. One quick question for the council. Does anyone in the council happen to know how long Judge Trujillo has been the municipal judge here? How many years? An estimate?
20,
Okay.
24.
I know he's close to retirement. Yeah, he's almost.
Okay, 20, 25 years. In the 25 years he's been there, not one time has a case been filed using this particular ordinance. So to say that no one's ever used it would give you an idea how relevant it is for us to have a municipal ordinance for this. 25 years, no one's ever used it. And the reason the E was put in there, it does have bearing, because if someone does go to this ordinance thinking, I knew there was an ordinance that allowed me to sue my neighbor, it directs them where to go to the district court, even gives them the site for the state statute, so they still have that remedy.
So for the record, Mr. Aaron, will you cite the correct ordinance number that is incorrect?
This is to amend section 200-40 and 301-11, as was given in the agenda.
Is it that ordinance number 21-04?
Say again?
Is that in ordinance number 21-04?
Yes, this ordinance is number 21-04. The concern was that in the first sentence there, it references amending the docket fees collected by the municipal court in section 20-13A. That's obviously a typographical error.
Okay.
That's not what this ordinance is about. This ordinance is amending section 200-40 and section 301-11.
Of that same ordinance.
Those two ordinances are the ones that are being affected, not 20-13A.
Got you. And you said we can proceed.
Yeah, because the notice that was given out in the agenda doesn't mention the grammatical error.
Okay.
Is this information public record when we put out the agenda to the public? Or
Yes. And it was also republished with that same, the correct ordinance as it states on the agenda. It was republished.
So the request for tonight before the council is that this is an ordinance to amend the code of the city of Las Vegas, section 200-40 and section 301-11, period. This ordinance is enacted pursuant to section 202 of the city municipal charter. So in making that correction, that's what's before the council.
Thank you. Anyone else going to speak on this issue? I'll entertain a motion to go back into regular session.
make a motion to return to regular session?
There's a motion by Mr. Romero. Second, please.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Ulibarri Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Matoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, second by Counselor Ulibarri Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council? I'll entertain a motion to adopt the ordinance as discussed.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Montoya?
Question for the city clerk. So you're saying that you re-advertised it correctly?
That is correct.
And so it was just a typo and that was...
It was a typo on the ordinance that was attached to the agenda. So the actual agenda that was posted on the website is correct, the agenda request form is correct, and the
Okay.
publication was correct.
Okay. And so this is correct now? All this?
Yes.
Okay.
On the agenda.
Otherwise, you could have brought it up at when we were going to approve the agenda, right? If it was incorrect.
Yes.
In fact, yeah.
Mr. Romero?
And I guess this question would be to Bill. If we're to table this item, are we hindering any abatements at this time? If we were to,
No, I don't think so. Anything we have in motion right now.
would it affect anything that we're,
May affect items that are currently red tagged, that are moving towards being liens put on them, but I don't think it affects, I don't think there's any cases pending right now that it would affect. It certainly wouldn't affect anything any of the residents do.
so but tabling it,
What's the pleasure of the council? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, question.
Mr. Montoya?
Mr. City Attorney, since this item was tabled before, can it be tabled again? Or does it have to be acted on tonight?
It had to be brought up tonight or would have expired automatically. It's been brought up, so if you want to table it, it would push it to the next meeting.
Okay. And what's your recommendation as far as the correction? It's just a typo and it's corrected?
Well, what's being presented to the council would include amending the grammatical error.
And where is that stated?
I just stated it.
Okay.
If you want to table it to give us time to go in and make that grammatical correction, that's,
I'll go ahead and make a motion, Mr. Mayor, that we go ahead and table this item, ordinance number 21-14, till it comes to us corrected and published correctly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is it 21-14 or 21-04?
I'm sorry, 04.
Thank you, sir. And until what next, to the city,
To the
next city
next-
council?
next meeting,
Thank you.
yes.
There's a motion on the floor to table.
Mr. Mayor, since we're likely to have a special meeting, would it have to come to at that meeting, or would it come to the next regular meeting?
I think the next regular meeting.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Junior?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, second by Counselor Olivari Junior. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Cassandra. Next order of business.
Item 2, request approval of the lodger's tax recommendation to provide funding to the Citizens Committee on Historic Preservation, the CCHP, to fund the marketing and advertising campaign that promotes the city of Las Vegas as a key destination for Santa Fe Trail bicentennial visitors. And this was tabled for this meeting from our last meeting. We have Frank Bierskens, and I guess Kuschek is not here, so we have our community development director.
Council and Mr. Mayor, the members of the Lodgers Board are all business owners, and they were all tied up in their businesses for this evening, and a couple of them are out of town, so we could not get one of the members from the board to participate. But this is just to come back to the council and to request approval for the $5,000 that was requested by CCHP for the advertising of the Santa Fe Trail and Bicentennial. And so on your sheet that's in your packet, I highlighted the 3 items that were part of that $5,000 request. So that's the breakdown that you were requesting at the last meeting.
It should have highlighted, because I don't, my
Yeah, you should have it on your the front page of the application. There should be a cover letter explaining that, and then right behind it should be
versus part 1 project information? That's the actual.
Yeah, it's page 11 in the application, which I just moved into in front of the,
Was it too many pages to give us the whole application, Bill?
I'm sorry?
Was it too many pages to give us the whole application?
You should have had the whole application. It should be on page 11. Unless maybe yours didn't print out or something. But it should look like this if you can see it.
Not on my part.
It's on the second page, third page. It's not highlighted, though. It's just
If it was printed black and white, it may not be highlighted.
Yeah, it's barely highlighted.
That could be the problem, yeah.
But it's got a total of cost of $19,500.
Right, that was the original request for several projects that CCHP put in one application, and that was one of the issues with the board. They wanted to have individual events for each application, and so they approved the $5,000 for, if you look at that list, it shows item number 1 3 times. That's the total of $5,000 for that project.
Yeah, but lodger's tax only approved the 5,000.
Right,
That's
and
what we're asking.
CCHP resubmitted the other projects on individual applications that'll follow up in the next city council meeting.
So just on this bill, the $1,000 for the professional travel writing promotion, I had a chance to look at the best practices book. Does that follow within allowable expense?
It would be writing an article about the event, to put it in magazines, so yes. it's promoting Las Vegas.
Okay, and I want to, just for the record, I did meet with Mr. Burskins, and he understood where I was coming from, at our last meeting, and I think, the whole council, that we want more accountability, and I did have a chance to meet with Mr. Krutik, the chairman, with Mr. Bakta, the chairman of the Lodgers Tax Board, and they're on the same page as far as accountability. But, we do have a couple new members that are on the board, and I would suggest from here on out that maybe we work on the application process, look at that best practices manual and see what we come up, moving forward. Of course, we're gonna, with these new fundings, we're gonna want the accountability until then, but we need to put some procedures in place that we address some of these concerns that we have, so it's not like the council on a daily, not daily, but monthly time, every time you guys are coming forward to us, it seems like we're being negative or anything. It just, we want that accountability, and if we set that procedure in place automatically, then we shouldn't have that problem.
Well, and also, the process is they're paid in arrears, so they have to spend their money first. And normally, we're in conversations with the organizations and what they're spending their money on, because sometimes it's a little nebulous as far as, the title or the topic of what they're submitting for the request. So those discussions are usually had during the board meetings to convince us that, yes, that's fitting into promotions and advertising or infrastructure, whatever that topic that falls properly. But then also, when they submit their invoice, they have to tell us what they spent their money on, what part of their ask, and so we have to match that up as well. And if it's something that seems a little off, we will confront them with it. And if it doesn't meet
And I was told by Mr. Bakta that in the past, because he's been on the Lodgers Tax Board for a long time, and he's asking that, reports be given back. I know you guys are probably taking care of that internally, but like in anything in government and anything, fiscal, there always has to be checks and balances, and, of course, we have to have the trust in your department that they're doing that, but me as a council member, I would also have that, I would want to have that assurity to where the Lodgers tax, whoever's requesting the funding, they are coming back to the board and presenting and say, we spent this on this, a quick brief summary, and then from there, whether we make it a procedure, and then that's something that we'll talk about, Bill, and I didn't have a chance to follow up with you. But that's kind of what I want to set in place, that we have the procedure set in place, that we don't have to have a report from, Lodgers tax, but if we get a monthly report within the package that we get from the city, then that would be, suffice for me, but of course, I'm one of 4 council members, but that's kind of some ideas, but we'll have those discussions and bring that forward.
The other thing is I want to talk about that $5,000 rule. I want to get rid of that $5,000 rule. So if I need $20,000 for a project, I don't have to go to them 4 times to get $5,000 each time. It doesn't make any sense. And is that in an ordinance, or is it a written rule, or why is it only why do they think it's only 5,000?
Well, there's 2 levels, 5,000 and 2,500, depending on the project. But that was done through council.
Okay, and so I'd like to get on the next business agenda to remove that $5,000 amount. I think it would just make sense, as opposed to these people having to fill out four applications for $20,000.
And Mr. Mayor, that, and I supported that back then, and actually it came from the recommendation of the Lodgers Tax Board at that time. There was a feeling of accountability, I believe it was. So, at that time, I think that was a big reason behind the voting on the $5,000 cap, but I agree with you. I think there's some projects that, the next one that we're approving tonight is one of them, but, but again, it's all procedures in place that we got to make sure that, that they're valid requests, and, I think some of them in the past could have been pretty questionable, and I think that's one of the reasons why at that time the lodger's tax.
No, I understand. I just
we
think it
voted
doesn't
on
make
it.
sense.
We voted on it last year, but it excluded the Fourth of July fiestas and the bike rally.
Yeah.
They could do.
Well, I would hope that we would reconsider that $5,000 limit.
And then the other point on that, Mr. Romero, is that even if the lodger's tax wouldn't want to, like we have an item on the agenda here tonight, even if the lodger's tax would bypass and not want to approve that, mayor and council still has that authority to run
Yeah.
it through.
Yeah, we know that. Mr. Burskins?
Just a couple comments with regard to that. And as a result of the original presentation where we lumped them all together in one proposal, that was rejected. We filed them back with 5 separate $5,000 or less proposals. In the meantime, and just to give some perspective, to run an ad in the International Folk Art magazine that the Southwest Santa Fe, New Mexican produces, which would have been an appropriate magazine maybe to advertise one of the events. One ad is $2,400. That, in addition to the cost of that ad, we missed the deadline 2 weeks ago. We're unable to execute on some of the media outlets that we looked at in the original proposal. And as we have 4 more proposals coming from lodger's tax at the next meeting. This marketing and promotional for the 5,000 was promoting those other 4 or 5 events. So we're already way behind the 8 ball. What we've done in response, and this is something to think about, I think, in all of our promotions, we're going to shift the emphasis to digital media. And in digital media, we don't know we control the cost of what that advertisement will be by simply putting a cap on it. So for example, on Google, we can buy keywords associated with the Santa Fe Bicentennial, and it costs approximately $1.96 for a click. That if that ad generated somebody to follow through, it's $2. We can set a limit to say, I'll spend $2,000 and that's it. That's the way we can effectively target the dollars and have pure accountability based upon data and numbers. When we're into print, and this is something I think that deserves more consultation among both Lodgers Tax Board and the council. When we're dealing with print, the accountability issue is difficult, just like it is in a billboard. And I think we have to kind of look at what we define as accountability in the programs. The other final point would be, just as this one cost for one ad for the bicentennial that CCHP was looking at, it really is an opportunity to bring up the community-wide advertising and marketing campaign where each of us nonprofits can work together with a group and we can get effective buys, because quite frankly, for one organization to buy an ad in any publication with a $5,000 limit, that's not being efficient.
Right. And I think we're working on that. We're coming together on that too.
And to add to that, I mean, I still think that, I mean, a lot of, of course, I know we want to outreach, heads and beds, people coming in, but we do also have, the local media to where family members see these events and they have people from out of town. So we can't, and I'm going to say this, is we can't forget the local media here, and they do have, a digital base, where those ads come out that we, I mean, I'm asking and pleading that we also, include our local media, because they are going to.
In that best practices manual for lodgers tax in the state of New Mexico, it states we have to be spending that money in areas 60 miles outside of the locale in order to be appropriate for lodgers tax. So those numbers are more from the print world. I think in the digital, to your point, the optic has much broader coverage outside the local area, but according to the best practices manual, technically, we wouldn't be able to advertise in the optic.
But on their digital one, because they have, I think, that's landmark newspapers or something that they have a broad base.
If they would publish it in
to all their areas, yeah, okay.
All right, so what's the pleasure of the council on this one agenda item? The $5,000, Mr. Romero?
Make a motion to approve the request for Lodgers Tax to provide funding to CCHP with the condition that a report of the spending after the events are done, a report be given to the Lodgers Tax Board.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion by Mr. Romero, second by Mr. Montoya. Please roll call us.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Olivares Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Next order of business, please. Thank you, Mr. Burskin, and thank you, Bill.
Item number 3, request approval for a special allocation of lodgers tax funding in the amount of $14,145 for marketing the Friday al fresco event. We have Chuck Grego, our film events coordinator.
So we heard,
Okay.
I think we heard this last week, the purpose. So I'll entertain a motion at this time by the council.
Mr. Mayor, I still would like to discuss this. You know, I reviewed the meeting on, that they had on our website, city website. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Grego, I did hear the chairman ask for a motion, and there was a motion. And then he asked for a second, and he asked for a second, and then he asked for a second, and there was a second, but he must have not heard it, or somebody must have been stepping away. But it was recorded on there as a first and second. So I'm sure that this item would have passed, and we wouldn't be here today if it wouldn't have been denied for those reasons.
Thank you.
So with that, Mr. Mayor, do you have anything to say, Mr. Grego, or Mr. Hendrickson?
No.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve these two billboards on I-40. And also, you know,
That's the next one. This was for Fridays al fresco.
Al fresco's, yeah. Let me see, I lost myself here, Mr. Mayor.
Number 3.
Number
3. On the business side.
Number 3. Yeah, approval of a special allocation from Lodgers Tax funding in the amount of $14,145
Thank you. There's a
for
motion.
marketing of Friday Fresco's event. And I think this is something positive for our community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'll entertain a second. Second by Mr. Olivares. Roll call, please.
Just discussion real quick if I can. Just as we move forward, Chuck, one quick question that I have, as far as KNMX, they have multiple stations versus, you know, others.
It's going to be
So we could-
simulcast.
Okay. Just because, you know, I know, well, it looks like there's a little difference here, but, you know, one only has 2 stations, KNMX has multiple stations, and to give them kind of the same, kind of not fair, because.
Right. The other change to this would be KBAC would be replaced by KWSB, I believe they're called. It's Radio Suave. But the amounts stay the same.
Okay. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivares Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, second by Counselor Olivares Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Item 4, request approval of contract
Thank you,
between the
Chuck.
City of Las Vegas and Las Vegas First Independent Business Alliance for acquiring 2 billboards on I-40. Mr. Hendrickson?
Mr. Mayor, Council, we wanted to get the contract for Las Vegas First for the 2 billboards that you approved on I-40, but we also wanted you to be able to look at the contract itself. This is pretty much a standard contract in some fashion that we use for most of our lodgers tax. The only thing that usually changes for the most part is maybe some reporting requirements and the statement of work or whatever they're going to spend their money on. So we would like you to look at that because this is, in the near future, I would like to be able to, when we get approval for monies allocated, just like tonight, that we also approve the contract so we don't have to come back a second time, which could be a month later, which would delay like advertising that Mr. Burskin was talking about tonight.
Very well, what's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero?
Okay, on the scope of work, it just says advertising and promotional materials, but there's no scope as to distinguishing what specific advertising. I mean,
so that comes to when they do a design. So LV First will be doing a design. They will bring that to us for approval through our department, whether that meets the, what we're trying to get accomplished with the I-40 billboards. So we do have a say-so on what that design looks like and how long it's going to be up. In this case, we're going for a one-year contract, so the vinyls will last that long. Normally, on a lot of the billboard contracts, we'll have 2 or 3 vinyls built into the contract so we can change them out for whatever our events are going on, like New Mexico True and that type of thing.
okay, so the 16,000, how many changes of the billboard?
Just the one. So it'll be up for 1 year for the 16,000.
For 2 boards.
You have 2 billboards, so they're 8,000 apiece. And that's for one vinyl for 1 year, yes.
One side?
One side, yeah. We did this just because it's a test on our part. The more effective way would be to go with like a 2 or 3 year contract. And usually when you do that, the price is a little bit cheaper. They throw the vinyls in the X number of vinyl changes in the contract as well. But we were only going to 1 year, and so it wasn't cost effective to put multiple vinyls in there.
So in this contract, because I don't remember us approving the 16,000, was it the 16,000?
Yes.
So
Yeah, we
in
tabled it
this,
We tabled it the first time and then we,
yeah, to get the contract.
Yeah.
Right. So we basically can have no say-so in changing it within the year? I mean, and then the reason why I asked the 16,000 is I've inquired in the past on him, and I don't remember one side being, well, I guess it's 8,000 or something. Okay, I take that.
I mean, we could change the vinyls, it's just we'd have to pay the additional vinyl price, that's all. So we're not prevented from changing vinyls. Normally, it's just tied into the contract. Like I said, normally we'll have either 2 or 3 vinyl changes. We do that with the billboards that are on I-25 here. I think there's 3 vinyl changes involved with those as well.
But you'd have to consider the cost of design if you're going to change them.
True, and there's other costs involved in it, but it just, we're going out for the 1 year on I-40 just to
And
see how
that was my
works.
next question on this, is there's no separation of the cost for the design, like how much is going toward the design, how much for the actual billboard? Because I thought that Las Vegas First was the one doing the design.
Right, they're not charging us for the design. There's no charge. That is the full price. So there's a billboard price and then the vinyl price, and that's it. So they're providing the design. We will approve the design.
Basically the deliverable at the end is we're going to get a receipt from the billboard company.
Yeah.
For that amount. That's what the deliverable will be.
Right. We'll get an invoice from LV First, which will be the invoice from the billboard company.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the contract between us.
Mr. Mayor, I had a question. Mr. Hendrickson, so we had a request earlier in this meeting from Mr. Frank Casey requesting pyramid signage to be like placed over there in Albuquerque by the airport and so forth. Who would he contact, or can you proceed on this, or should he go through Leisure Tax or First Business Alliance?
No, so we do have with the New Mexico True campaign, and not knowing what he wants to advertise, we have billboards built into that as well. So, and I haven't seen that yet, so
Okay.
we'd have to kind of look at that. But it should, most likely, it should go through lodger's taxes, because it's advertising.
Excuse me, there's a motion on the floor.
So like with the condition that they report back after it's all said and done to the lodger's tax.
There's a motion on the floor. Second, please.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Roll call list, please.
Counselor Levani Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, second by Counselor Levani Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Cassandra.
Moving on to item number 5, request to publish ordinance number 21-12, amending the code of the city of Las Vegas, section 389-6, entitled exemptions. This ordinance is enacted pursuant to sections 2.02 of the city of Las Vegas municipal charter and as it is an exercise of the city's formal powers. Mr. Hendrickson?
Okay. Here we go. Okay, council and Mr. Mayor, this ordinance is to change the, let's see, I'm on item number 5. Okay, got it. So we have a ordinance for our lodger's tax. It includes exemptions, and the last exemption, which is on, it's highlighted in your packet, paragraph G. The exempted any taxable premise that does not have at least 3 rooms. This basically leaves out pretty much all your B&Bs in town or any other community. And this has been a suggested change from the state of New Mexico to remove that paragraph, because that was in everybody's ordinances back at whenever they first instituted it. So by removing that, it allows us to implement lodger's tax on 1-room B&Bs, basically.
Or 2 rooms.
Or more.
Yeah.
So Bill, and this puts us in alignment with the state
Yes.
statute, right, that we have?
Yes.
And thank you for bringing this up, because I had been told about it, but we hadn't, so you're ahead of the game on this one.
How many do we have in town?
Well, it's hard to say. Now, one way to find out, when we were visiting Rio Doso and talking to the city manager, Tim Dodge there, they had hired a company that scrubs the internet, looking for people that are advertising rooms in your community, and then they will give you that information, and then we can send them a letter and saying, you're renting out, you need to start collecting lodger's tax and get yourself signed up with the city. So I've got a message out to Mr. Dodge to find out who those people are, and we'll look into that as well.
With that, Bill, can we also, if they're renting them, can we also sell business licenses if we don't have that?
I would think
the
so.
scope?
I would think so.
So if you could, I mean, I would suggest that, we give guidance to you that you do that we scrub the internet and find those, because there is, somebody was telling me we only have 2 Airbnbs, and I'm like, no, I know we have more, because I personally have used Airbnb, and
For sure.
I've seen them, so, it's only right, and then the other part is collecting the, because I know some of them are listed through Airbnb, and my next question is, isn't the state collecting that right now, or how?
That I'm not sure, but I think part of the process, we'll find out, we'll probably have to reach out to the Airbnb company to make sure they understand that we are collecting taxes on those size venues. And then I don't know if we have to do the same thing with like TripAdvisor and Expedia and stuff like that as well.
And that was gonna be my
Yeah,
next.
I'm gonna have to look into that
My next
myself.
question with Expedia and those, and it's not pertaining to only the Airbnbs, but to those third-party merchants that, are renting hotels, they do collect lodger's tax, but I don't know, I was told that in New Mexico, they had an issue with paying the lodger's tax back, Expedia, TripAdvisor, all those third-party hotel companies that they were having, that they weren't paying New Mexico municipalities, so who would we follow up with that to?
I talked to Crew Tech back at the Days Inn and Best Western, and he explained to me, I think they're back paying their gross receipts tax because of those issues. But it's been about a year ago when I talked to him about it, and so I'm not 100% sure on my memory of, what the nuances are of it, but I can touch base with him again and find out. But we did talk about that specifically.
Yeah, he brought that up to my attention. Okay.
What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor? Make a motion to publish ordinance 21-12.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. Second, please.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call this, please.
Counselor Leonetti Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Next order of business, please.
Item 6, request approval of a contract between the city and TJM Construction for the replacement of the roof on the west side farmers market building. Mr. Hendrickson?
Mr. Council, and,
Mr. Romero?
Mr. Mayor.
Bill,
Yes.
was procurement followed in this? And,
Yes.
Finance was good with it?
Yep. Yes.
With that, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve contract between the city and TGM Construction.
Thank you.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Olivari. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mayor, question. Bill, on the old metal tin that's there, that they're gonna be removing, can we separate it and put it in our auction?
Well, that part about the auction, I'm not sure, but we did talk about that this morning or yesterday, and the contractor says you can have it. That was my understanding, if we want it. If not, we were just gonna let him do whatever with it. So I guess what I'll do is, if it's all right with council, we'll find out if that's an effective way for us to deal with it, and if it's worth our while to do that.
Thank you.
I'll talk to utilities and
All right.
and solid waste.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, this came up this morning when we were with Rodriguez Park, and Stephen said they have use for that.
Right. Oh, they have you swear? Okay. No, it's a $48,000 that we received from the legislature, $771. What was the quote price for that? Or
sorry?
are you gonna put it out for bid, or what's the?
It already has been.
Yeah.
TJM is the lowest bidder.
And that's for that amount?
Yeah.
Because it indicated on here that if it was for any further amount than that, that the city would cover that money.
We have to, yeah, because they're at 48.7 now, and there's a possibility that when they tear up the metals, some of the underlayment may be damaged. So if that has to be replaced, then we'll have to absorb that additional cost.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Second, please.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Leonetti Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, second by Counselor Leonetti Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Item 7, request approval of resolution number 21-22, the sale of obsolete city assets at an online auction. We have our finance director, Mrs. Vaquero.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romero?
make a motion to approve resolution 21-22.
There's a motion on the floor to approve. Second, please.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Leonetti Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, second by Counselor Leonetti Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item number 8, request approval of resolution number 21-21 to make budget adjustment for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. Mr. Vaquero?
Mayor, council, this bar would have a fiscal impact on Fund 217 in the amount of $53,306. Fund 282, which is the senior center, for $34,500. And Fund 613, which is wastewater, in the amount of $550,000.
Mr. Vaquera, have these gone to the Finance Committee?
No, sir, they are scheduled to go to Finance Committee next week,
Why would they not go to them first?
because we are behind trying to catch up with the Finance Committee.
Okay, I would recommend that for the future,
We bring them in first?
yeah, that the committee, Finance Committee looks at them first, and then that way, I know we're in the situation, we have to do this, but I think the proper way is it going through Finance Committee first, and then...
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romero?
make a motion to the approval of Resolution 21-21 for budget adjustment for the 2020-2021 fiscal year.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero, second.
Second, Mr.
A second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Divari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Divari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
We have item number 9, request approval to hire a full-time public information officer, a PIO. We have our city manager, Dr. Taylor.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romero?
make a motion to approve the hire of a full-time PIO.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero, second.
Second, Mr.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Question, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
This position is going to be advertised?
Yes,
And, okay, and so there's an interview committee?
it will be.
Yeah.
We will follow the regular.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Divari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, second by Counselor Divari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Our last business item, number 10, request approval of an additional salary increase of 75 cents to the regular hourly rate of pay for members of the Las Vegas Police Officers Association, Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge number 20. We have our HR Director, Donna Castro.
Welcome, Donna. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
So at this time, what we are requesting approval to impose the additional salary increase of 75 cents per hour to the bargaining unit employees of the Police Officers Association. Additionally, we are requesting approval to increase the minimum pay rate for the officers to $18 an hour and $13 an hour for dispatchers who are in the unit. And I'd just like to say that this subject matter is exempt from the Open Meetings Act. So if there is any discussion on it, it should be discussed in executive session.
Thank you. What's the
I do have
pleasure
a
of the
question,
council?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Romero? Mr. Montoya?
Ms. Castro?
Yes.
What percentage does this add up to?
I am not sure of the percentage, but what they did receive already in fiscal year '21, what they are receiving on their anniversary date is a 3% increase. And so this is in addition to that. Dr. Taylor?
I just wanted to add that 75 cents is about $1,600 a year, so the percentage would depend on how much you're making. So if you were making $32,000, it'd be about a 5%. If you're making $40,000, $50,000, it'd be less.
And this doesn't include any overtime?
That is correct.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero?
So could you kind of, is it to the individual officer or is it to the pay plan?
It is to the individual officer. So the way their current bargaining agreement reads is that on the anniversary date of the employee in the unit, they move up a step in their pay plan, which is the 3%. Okay? So at this time, we are just asking for the 75 cents in addition to that 3% that they've received.
And Donna, don't answer any questions if you don't feel like this should be in public.
Okay.
Please.
Okay.
So why couldn't we just put it on the pay plan instead of individual? Because they would get it anyway, right? I mean,
Well,
long-term, on the being on the pay plan, I mean, no matter, I mean,
and I think that discussion can be taken in executive session as to what the management's thinking is going forward with the negotiations of the contract.
Just as an aside, Mr. Romero, we are looking at getting an update, maybe an entirely new pay plan. So we've been discussing that with consultants. We hope to bring that to you very soon.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Romero?
Wasn't it, to my understanding, that we gave direction that this is the route we were going to go? No?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero?
Make a motion to enter executive session for, and I wouldn't know, maybe Scott would get this for bargaining?
Yeah, for meetings, let me give you the site. It's section H5 of the Open Meetings Act for the discussion of bargaining strategy, preliminary to collective bargaining negotiations. Probably also falls under 7 as well, which is pertaining to threaten or pending litigation business matters of the job.
8-7? 8-7 was in it?
5 and.
So, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to enter executive session for matters pertaining to bargaining as permitted by section 10-15-1H5 of the OMA.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor for executive session. Second, please.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second. Roll callers, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Divari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Divari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
to exit executive session and return to regular session. I'd like to note that, for the record, only those matters specified in the motion for closure were discussed and no action was taken.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor to enter into regular session. Second, please.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Libari. Roll call.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Libari Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, second by Counselor Libari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero?
I just had one question, and I don't know if Don or Dr. Taylor could ask on this item, on item 10. Would it, right now, the way it's listed on the agenda is only for those in the union. Can we include the ones that are not in the union? Or?
We already did one.
Oh, you already did, okay.
I'll entertain a motion for item number 10.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr.
Make a
Romero?
motion to approve the additional salary increase of 75 cents to the hourly rate of the Las Vegas Police Officers Association.
There's a motion on the floor. A second?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call, please.
Counselor Libari Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is there an issue?
Yes, we amended it to also increase the minimum pay for officers to $18
Oh.
and to dispatchers for $13 an hour that are in the union.
It's not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda. The only thing on the agenda is 75 cents.
We'll have to take it up maybe at the special session.
Okay, thank you. Next order of business?
Is the budget hearing presentation, discussion items, presentation by city manager and finance director on preliminary fiscal year 2022 budget.
You have 10 minutes.
First thing, it's a preliminary budget, so
Thank
we're
you.
good.
Thank you.
Dr. Taylor?
Yes. So, Mr. Mayor and Council, this, as Jesus mentioned, this is a preliminary budget. We're required to present this to the Department of Finance Administration. Basically, it reflects the assumption of a flat budget at this time with an increase in revenues based on what we got in a normal year. But we will be bringing a full-fledged, complete budget to you in, I think in the first or second meeting in June?
Second in June.
Second meeting in June, where we go through everything in detail. And that'll include some adjustments to what we expect in revenues. And we'll also include some adjustments based on how much money we think we're going to have to departmental budgets. This is something we just have to do for DFA.
Okay.
And so we're recommending that you approve this budget, and basically if you look at it, it reflects pretty much where we are.
Will your next budget projection include taxes generated by internet sales?
We included that in this.
You did?
This one has $250,000 on it.
Okay, from internet.
From internet.
And that's an estimate, and
Yes.
that's a conservative estimate.
It's a conservative estimate. It's based on what the state has said that they think that we'll get overall, because the state's going to disperse that money then on they're going to take our population divided by the state's population. And so if let's say that's 2%, we'll get 2% of the money that's available. So I think that was something like $48 million is what they're estimating right now.
Wow. And that's for next fiscal year?
That's to start this.
22.
Yes, in
22.
We'll also, at that time, we'll hope to have some better information on when we start with the
Cannabis?
cannabis sales and how much, that's going to be a crapshoot because we don't have any history to go on, but this could be some real money. What we'll probably suggest, I think, is that we'll do something like we did this year, given all the uncertainty, where we go in with a kind of a base budget and then we revisit the budget in December and make adjustments once we have better information.
When we find out we have lots of money. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question. Mr. City Manager, I know that for the last 20 years, it seems like there's been an audit finding, and that one is for the fire suppression system. to the records. Is that addressed on this budget to correct it? So that we can get away from that finding every year?
We're trying to address it immediately, and so even in this year's budget, if we can, we just got quotes. I think the total cost was $50,000. Was it $50,000 for the two fire suppression systems, the dry water suppression system? So we're going to try to get that done immediately before the end, hopefully before the end of the fiscal year.
And the other concern that I have for next year's budget is that, I think that with this 3.5 that we're going to spend on Rodriguez Park for planning, design, and all that, I think maybe the city, it's about time that we move towards running all recreation baseball leagues instead in-house, and we would need some kind of funding for the rec center for that to happen. So
I know that we've had discussions with Stephen about that. He would prefer that because it allows for a little bit more flexibility compared to all the rules that you have to follow out of Williamsburg for Little League. But that's a decision I think that the council will have to make.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero.
So when are we going to, in the past, we've always had this is a little different, but we brought in all the departments and they've given, what their budgets and go through all that. When is that going to happen?
With the second meeting in June, I think we'll have a full-fledged budget hearing. And I think we're going to try to limit that agenda to just the budget or the budget and little else.
So when is the budget actually due?
It's due...
July 31st is the final, is due at DFA.
So we'll meet in June with staff and we'll meet with...
Well, I've already met with the directors. They gave me their proposed budgets. This is what this is showing, but the final budget will be July. We'll meet with you guys in June with all the directors and
so we'll take
the final
feedback
budget
that you give us to try to put together the final budget. So we'll be making a presentation in June with the eye towards getting a budget.
With staff, or we...
But the departments have already participated in the budget?
Yes, in this preliminary one, yes.
Okay, they've participated, but here's my 2 cents. Here we go again with the checks and balances, is of course, you guys are gonna feel what you guys, you guys are gonna keep, the budget tight. But the important part is for us to hear from staff and from directors is to where the council makes those priorities and gives them to you. So we kind of have it back. I would have preferred that we hear from them and then from them us with the direction.
The directions that they were given were, it was going to be a flat budget compared to FY20. So that's basically what they turned in, was a FY20.
And I understand the flat budget, but the flat budget, depending on what items are within that, individual department's budget. Let's take roads for an example. If we want to put more money in, that's something you guys would have to adjust within the budget, but if we say we want more money towards roads.
I think we'll provide you with some options and we'll start with the base budget, and the way we've been talking about it is then seeing how much money we have left over, and then getting a list of things that we could possibly fund, and we would take those to you.
And with that, Mr. City Manager, I'd also be concerned about, since we're going to work towards the Rodriguez Park complex and so forth, and we combine both parks and recreation, he needs a building. And, we need to somehow figure out where we can budget $70,000 or $80,000 to do a building for his equipment. Right now, it's kind of sitting outside in the rain and the sun.
I think we can do that, Councilor. As I've discussed with Jesus, you look at his budget report today, we have about $6 million in reserves.
Mm-hmm.
We started off 3 years ago with about $1 million in reserves. That's the minimum required by DFA. Our financial advisors tell us we need to have at least 3 months in reserves, which is what they require of counties. We don't know why they Our revenues are much more volatile than the county's revenues, but, so we'll then look at, I think we'll have a discussion about what the level of reserves should be, and then we could use whatever excess reserves, once we've determined that, for one-time expenditures, because it's not, the money's not recurring, but we could do things, we could do projects, we could do buildings, equipment, and we'll be bringing that to you.
Sidewalks.
Yeah, maybe.
What's the pleasure of the council?
Within the budget of the, taking into account the cost for the election?
Yes, I put budget in there in the city clerk's office for the election.
I just,
You'll get a very transparent document showing us exactly what we've done, and you can, once we present it, you can tell us, take money out of here and put it over there.
So is like now a time to prepare or plan for, now that the census done, they did the census and we have to redo some districting and hire somebody, is that included on there or is that?
That I don't know. I mean,
That did not
we've got a plan for.
get into the budget, just the elections was in there.
Yeah, because
Redistrict,
if we have to redistrict because of the counts, you know, or if mayor and council in combination with the charter commission decide they want to have more councilmen, that would have to be addressed also, and some funding would have to be
Would be a
appropriated
budget
for that.
adjustment.
Yeah, as well.
yeah.
I know redistrict, and actually we use, what's the name of the guy from the quote?
Sanderoff.
Brian Sanderoff. He's the one, it's his firm that does the redistricting for council seats and that.
Research and polling.
Research and polling, that's it.
And I think it's important to remember that, that's a non-recurring cost, so we can dip into reserves to pay for that. We don't do that on a regular basis. We don't have to do it year after year.
I would just, again, suggest that we do, it doesn't have to, I know we want to keep it as brief as possible, but I would like to hear from the department heads if you can.
I think, we'll try to dedicate that meeting only to the budget. Set aside 3 hours, I guess.
Very well. What's the pleasure of the council?
Includes legal department too?
They're fine.
Do you need a vote for this? or do you-
It's a presentation,
Oh, okay.
not an action item.
With that, Mayor, I make a motion to adjourn.
There's a motion to adjourn by Mr. Romero, second. Second. No, there's a second by Mr. Ulibarri.
Councilman Toya?
I'd like to thank the fire department for this notebooks that they gave us and the pens.
They're
Thank
nice.
you. Yes.
Councilor Leopardi Jr.?
Yes.
Councilor Romero?
Yes.
A motion by Councilor Romero, second by Councilor Leopardi Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you for all your work, Cassandra. I appreciate you.